this is a nothing. Yes, did they play perfect? No, they still win. Yes.
What are you doing if the Celtics win the championship?
If the Celtics win championship, I might break my sobriety. I might act up.
We did it! You got him.
All the way.
Celtics versus Heat. Celtics in what?
4.
Celtics versus Knicks. Celtics in
4.
You got Celtics in 4? Hell yeah.
Use a vocab word from a couple years ago. It's mind-boggling.
Let's go. What do you think for tonight? You think I'm worried about the Warriors? I ain't worried about the Let's go, baby. 18, baby. Load up the boat.
Why would you say that?
Because
I'm not. No,
recently he's putting up games like
above our head for the players.
literally right now.
But I think when Marcus, especially Marcus, when he got traded, I think that was a wake-up call.
You think right now
Rob,
it's still New York?
I do. And when I think of the Celtics dynasty, honestly, one of the first names that comes to my mind is actually Brad Stevens.
What is up, everybody, and welcome to Celtics Talk Weekly Postgame Live. I am your host, Seamus alongside of me tonight, Griffin Aldrich joining me here as the Boston Celtics beat the Brooklyn Nets on the second night of a not back-to-back, but a home-and-home against the Brooklyn Nets on what was a back-to-back series, a two-game series, a little mini two-game series against the Brooklyn Nets. 104-96. The Boston Celtics get it done. Now, no Jason Tatum, no Jaylen Brown tonight. This Celtics team definitely looked a lot different without their superstars out there tonight, but they handle business at the Garden. Of course, the next 6 games will be on the road for the Boston Celtics after the last 2 were just on the road for the Boston Celtics. So the Celtics just making a little stop there at home to face the Brooklyn Nets before they go out west on the road for the rest of the month of March. But the Boston Celtics now leave Boston with a nice solid 104-96 win over the Brooklyn Nets. Griffin, you've been here long enough now. It doesn't take too long to know the drill around here. Initial thoughts.
I mean, you just said it right there. Solid win. Nothing impressive. You already kind of touched up on it, but the Boston Celtics were playing without Jason Tatum and Jaylen Brown, which is kind of like, all right. Do we expect a big blowout here? I don't think so. We're going to see a lot of action from younger talent like Baylor Shireman, obviously having an incredible game. Just wanted to really quick get into him, as I thought he performed amazing and was a key part of this Boston Celtics win. Just really quick, had the main jersey on. Had to wear in the fourth quarter, I think it was. He was going nuts after that half court shot from him in the third. I was buzzer beater. Kind of looked like Peyton Pritchard out there a little bit, but obviously I'll talk about Baylor Shire. We'll get into Baylor Shireman more later, but I thought those 20 points, 3 rebounds, and 1 assist, 2 steals, and just shooting 87% was just incredible from Baylor Shireman. I love what I saw from him. But overall, it's kind of like one of those games where TD Garden was packed tonight. But if you're not a diehard Boston Celtics fan or Celtics fan in general, you're not going to really watch this game. It's kind of another one where we're going back to kind of Miami Heat, Utah Jazz. It was kind of one where you're like, it was kind of a lame game. But there was a lot of good parts, though. I saw a lot of good things from Porzingis. I saw a lot of good things from the Boston Celtics. Ultimately, it was a kind of a back and forth game in a sense. It wasn't a sea of green that we're used to. It was kind of just a interesting game. The Nets played phenomenal against the Boston Celtics tonight, and I wasn't able to watch the last game, but I'm pretty sure they did the same thing as we only won by 2 points. So the Nets have been playing good defense, and they matched up well against us this matchup. And honestly, I think the only reason why you didn't see it being even closer at the end is kind of the Nets tanking in a sense. So honestly, disappointed on kind of how close it was, but with no Tatum or Brown, you could expect this. But I also expect KP to step up, which he did, but Drew Holiday as well. But ultimately, Celtics got the dub, and we've been saying a win is a win. Doesn't matter matter how pretty it is. And that's what the Boston Celtics did tonight.
Right now in the Boston Celtics schedule, I mean, the games on the schedule are laughable, really, for the rest
Yeah.
of the year. And we went through it. I went through it with Franco the other night. There's really only 2 games left in the next 13 games that are really going to matter. And for the Boston Celtics, when I say matter, they might not matter to the Celtics. They might matter to teams like the Memphis Grizzlies, the New York Knicks, the Orlando Magic. Now, the Orlando Magic, they've been kind of falling off a cliff lately, but still, they're fighting for that play. And we're either seeing teams who are fighting for a play-in or fighting for a seat at the top of the West or the East right now. And those games are few and far between in the Celtics schedule. Outside of those, we're seeing a lot of tanking teams at the end of the year. And I kind of want to go on a tangent real quick here, because earlier this season, the Celtics kind of struggled in December and January, as we all know. 20-game stretch, they went 11-9. They were nearly 500. The Celtics, arguably their easiest portion of the schedule comes in the next couple of weeks, in the next month, in the last month of the season. And I do wonder at this point in time. Now, I know, look, obviously the record, 19 losses already on the season. And actually, let's point this out: 50th win of the season for the Boston Celtics tonight. So the Celtics, they notched 50 wins this season. But you see those 19 losses, they're not going to match their win total from last year. So that's out the door. However, I do look at the schedule in the next coming weeks here. With all of the opponents on the Celtics schedule, I do wonder if that record is beefed up a little bit by the end of the year. And if we do, we talked about it the other night with Franco. 62 wins, maybe they only lose
I'm
one game,
telling
2 games.
you.
I don't
Watch
know.
it.
I'm just saying.
Watch it. It's coming. I'm sticking
I'll
with it.
say this: we have not lost since that meeting between us on here. They have not lost. The Celtics have not lost. So they're
So that was
on on
15.
course.
That
They're
was
on
okay.
par. I think it was it was the Miami game. Was it the Miami game?
No, it was
Or I don't
OKC because that was only you and I. All right, so yeah,
Okay,
it was
okay.
after that
Yeah,
loss.
no, you're right. Because Miami, right. Let's disclaim this for the folks. No tornadoes in the area
Yeah,
tonight. No tornadoes. The Miami game, that's the tornado game. That'll be the patented tornado game.
yes,
But
iconic.
yes, the other night we did talk about the win total, and we haven't lost since then. 3-0. We'll say that. Definitely on the course right now. But the main point of this all was the Celtics could beef up their record the next coming weeks, really looking at the schedule. And maybe the Celtics do finish with a record that's a little bit more respectable than we thought at a certain point in January, even December. But another main point in all this is the Celtics. Right now, I wouldn't expect anybody to look at this Celtics stretch, the last 3 games specifically, between the Heat, the Nets, and the Nets again, and look at the Celtics and go, wow, I'm impressed, because the Celtics have not been impressive in the last 3 games. The one impressive thing, however, has been the Boston Celtics have won every single one of these games. And these games in January, if really they came earlier in the season, I don't know if the Boston Celtics actually go out there and win these type of games, because in some of them, the Boston Celtics, they won off of pure talent. They won off of pure execution. They won off of things that the other team, the Brooklyn Nets or the Miami Heat, did not have in their possession, in their arsenal at all. And what the Nets and the Heat did have was a lot of hustle, a lot of heart, some grit in there, but sometimes it's just not enough to overcome a talented team who's executing at a high level. And that's what I thought we saw in these 3 games against the Nets, the Heat, and then the Nets again. And these last 2 games, the Boston Celtics, they haven't been particularly impressive whatsoever, but this is a part of the schedule where you really do not expect the Celtics to get up for every single game. Number one, because we already mentioned it, Jaylen Brown and Jason Tatum, they're out of the lineup tonight. So automatically, the complexity of the team, the rotations, the lineup of the team, it's all over the place. It's not the same as it is on a normal night at all. And then tonight, we saw a lot of guys needed to fill roles in which they typically don't fill, because Tatum and Brown are out of the lineup. And we'll get a little bit more in depth on that later. But number one, you're just going to see a lot of rest in a lot of these games throughout the rest of the season. We're going to see KP go out, Horford, Holiday, White. They're all going to rest too. They were all in tonight, but no Brown and Tatum. So number one, some hype from the game is taken away from the sheer standpoint. The stars aren't playing in the game whatsoever. But you look at the schedule for the Celtics. The Celtics right now, where they're at within the schedule, I do not expect them to play every single game with tenacity. I do not expect them to play every single game with their fullest effort. And yet they're pulling out wins right now. And that's really, for me, what I see within this entire equation for the Boston Celtics as a positive, because during the stretch, it would be easy for the Celtics to come out here and start dropping games out of nowhere. I mean, it really would. I mean, tonight's game, it would not have shocked me if the Celtics lost this game the way it was going. I mean, they were down at half. They were down after the first quarter, and the Nets looked like the not more talented team, but the team who could actually get a bucket easier, aside from the Boston Celtics. But this part of the schedule for the Celtics, it's going to be a part of the schedule where the Celtics are not going to want to get up for these games. And yet, the last three games, the Celtics actually came to play in timely moments and scratched out wins. And that's really what's most important. But looking at the lead tracker tonight, that is fully illustrated in this lead tracker. As I mentioned, the Celtics did not lead at the end of the first quarter in this one, nor did they lead at the end of the second quarter at halftime. The Celtics had to claw their way back into this game and really make an impact near the end. You see that sea of green really start in the fourth quarter, but otherwise, the Nets had clear control of this game throughout, but the Celtics, they just overran the Nets at the end. And really, what I thought made the entirety of the difference for the Boston Celtics was that Baylor Shireman buzzer beating three at the end of the third quarter going into the fourth. I felt like that gave the Celtics all the momentum they needed going into the fourth to come out and pull out this game. You see that within the lead tracker here. The Celtics just got it going early on in the fourth. The Nets, of course, took the lead back, but the Celtics kept putting that lead onto the Nets, and all of a sudden it became a game where it went back and forth, and the Celtics, they notched their biggest lead, which tonight, only 10 points, only 10 points. So we're only looking at four little columns there, four little bars there on the screen right now, but only 10 points, the biggest lead for the Boston Celtics tonight, yet that comes late in the fourth quarter, and the Celtics do an extremely good job at the end of this game pulling the game out. But for you, Griffin, out of every single player on the floor tonight, I think already know your answer to this. Who impressed most in their increased role on the Boston Celtics tonight?
Before I answer that question, I kind of add on what you were saying really quick. Just really quick, I loved what you said right there, and I agree. I feel like that was the Brooklyn Nets game until the Boston Celtics stole it in the fourth. I mean, you look at the first quarter, Boston only had 21 and the Nets had 26, and then all tied up at in the second quarter, 23-23. And then the Celtics got a little more momentum in the third, having 27 and the Nets only having 21. But ultimately, they got the win at the end with 33 points and the Nets only having 26. But that looked like the Nets game. I do want to ask a question before I answer this one. With the Boston Celtics kind of playing not full head of steam, kind of, obviously we've talked about bad habits and stuff. Now, I'm not saying this is a bad habit or anything. I just am asking you a question. Do you think this could be a concern that coming into playoffs that the Celtics aren't playing full head of steam and not used to that competitive atmosphere? Where are your thoughts on that? And then I'll answer your question. I'm sorry about that. I just wanted to hear what you.
Oh, we got. I don't know if you heard that. We got a little meow in the background right now.
I was so confused because we have cats here too. I was like, wait, I don't think there's a cat in here. Yeah, I was so confused for a second.
She's just exploring, and I guess she doesn't want to make an appearance, just an audio appearance for Meow tonight. But she does that well. She this is a talk show. She loves to talk, so that goes along well. Maybe just an audio appearance for her tonight. She's all the way across the room, but she's gonna continue. She's gonna continue as long as she wants. So, folks, if it sounds like this for 40 minutes. I'm sorry. That's why she's named Meow Meow. I'm just saying. But to answer your question, and there she goes. She's all right. I'm gonna have to. This what also just to disclaim this for all the people out there. When you record, make sure there's nothing going on behind your camera, because if there's stuff flying around going on behind your camera, you're never going to be able to focus on the camera. Like right now, it's like, oh, I got stuff going on over here. Like my attention's over here, focuses over here. You gotta make the setting behind yourself just clean, no movement, clean. Here we go. But your question about the full head of steam right now. The full head of steam for the Boston Celtics that they're not really playing with at the moment. We talked about this a little bit with Franco the other night, where the Celtics right now, I'm not. I don't know how to properly evaluate this team because there are some people who are saying, well, they're exactly where they should be. I mean, they're the second seed. Yes, they had a lull that should have been expected in the middle portion of the season. You have two talented NBA teams right now, the Thunder and the Cavs, just running ahead of everybody. The Thunder are running ahead of everybody in the West. The Cavs are running ahead of everybody in the East. But the Celtics, they're third. I mean, you look at all the NBA records, the Celtics are firmly third. They're not fourth. They're not letting any other team surpass them. We're not talking about, oh, the Boston Celtics falling past fifth and even the NBA rankings. They're third in terms of record, and a lot of people still believe in the Boston Celtics as a championship squad. So on one hand, the Celtics situation just as a whole, they are in a good spot, and a spot where people actually thought they could be at this point in the year. Yes, you have two talented teams running ahead of everybody, but the Celtics, they've still been quality this season, and the record shows it. Some of their play earlier in the season and in the past, really 20 games for the Celtics. I believe they're 17-4 in their last 21 games. The Boston Celtics are right now. Actually, it'd be what, 18-4 after tonight, but that's kind of what I look at with the Boston Celtics and go, okay, we're in a great spot. But looking at the entirety of the schedule, have we done enough to actually prove ourselves come playoff time? Because yes, this team proved themselves last year during the playoffs, winning the championship. Okay. People love to throw that out because it's true. Okay. This Boston Celtics club has already won a championship, but let's not kid ourselves. Last year's championship run was a little bit of a cupcake walk, and it doesn't take anything away from the Boston Celtics championship because they're still champions at the end of the day. They're still immortalized, and the society cannot take that away from the Boston Celtics. They have 18 rings. That's just the end of the story at the end of the day. But amidst that championship run, there was no Jimmy Butler against the Miami Heat. Donovan Mitchell missed half of the series against the Cavs. You go to the conference finals. Tyrese Halliburton missed that series. And then in the NBA finals, yeah, Luka injured. No, I'm not buying into that. But at the same time, the finals matchup was against a 5 seed who miraculously made it out of the West. We were firmly talking about 4 teams last year, aside from the Mavericks, they were supposed to come out of the West. It was the Clippers, it was the Nuggets, it was the Timberwolves, it was the Thunder. The Mavericks, of course, beat the Clippers. They beat the Thunder. They beat the Timberwolves. So they had every right to be there. And the Timberwolves, of course, beat the Nuggets. Mavericks had every right to be there, but they were not the toughest team out of every single team. At least the toughest matchup for the Boston Celtics out of every single team we were talking about last season, who could potentially come out of the West and make the finals. So those 4 teams at the top, the Celtics never had to face. You have all these injuries in the East, and you're facing an opponent out of the West that nobody expected to make it. And that championship run is a little bit of a soft landing to the championship. I always envisioned a Celtics championship with Brown and Tatum being one of those kind of, in crunch time, we're sitting there biting our fingernails, we're puckering up, we're going, game 7, game 6 in the finals, here we go, like this is close. But it never really was like that. It was dominance throughout the entirety of the playoffs. I think this year, for me, why that's kind of invalidated in my mind last year, the dominance. For one, it's time. The next year, new teams, new competition on the horizon. Everybody, guys develop, guys regress, teams add on. The obvious reason. But this year, I don't see as being that same dominant run for the Boston Celtics. It hasn't been in the regular season, and I don't think it's coming in the playoffs if it hasn't came in the regular season at this point in time. And we're almost 70 games in tonight. Game 69, by the way, folks. Game 69 out there. Just saying for all the people. But the Celtics right now, within their schedule, where they're at, I haven't seen the dominance. I don't think the dominance is going to come around the corner in the playoffs, but that's what's going to make this playoff run so hard is this year, the Boston Celtics, they're likely going to have to play a competitive game 5, not a closeout game 5, maybe a closeout game 5 somewhere in there, but a competitive game 5 where the series could be tied 2-2. And the winner has all the advantage in game 6. The Celtics might have to play a competitive game 6 or even a competitive game 7. Obviously, every game 7 is competitive, but those 3 games, game 5, game 6, game 7, I think the Celtics are going to have a healthier diet of those competitive games within this playoff run. And that's where I look at this team and go, okay, they still need to prove it in that regard. And they still need to prove it from a standpoint of we can flip the switch in these moments. We have some speculation that this team is able to flip the switch. Okay, we've seen it this season. Switch was flipped on to begin the year. In December and January, clearly flipped off. In February and March so far, flipped back on. And that's really where we've seen this team travel to within the schedule this year. But throughout that, this thing that to me is just the Celtics, what I'm very conflicted with is yes, they were dominant last year. Yes, they were a championship team last year, but it was a cupcake walk to the finals. And I'm gonna say that because it was. It just was. It was, yes, it was tough to face these teams, but at the end of the day, the toughest circumstances did not truly meet the Boston Celtics last year. They truly did not. I mean, everything pretty much went right for the Boston Celtics outside of Porzingis' health in the playoffs last year. And I just don't think that's going to be the same case for the Boston Celtics this year. I don't think every single thing is going to go right, especially with the opponents. I think there are going to be some opponents out there, Cavs, Thunder, you never know, the Knicks, the Pacers out there this year, even in the first round, could face a scrappy Hawks team. They're going to have some advantages on the Boston Celtics that they didn't have last year. I'm not saying they're advantages to the point where the Celtics could succumb to those advantages, but they're advantages that make the margin of error slimmer for the Boston Celtics. But just this season alone, I look at it and go, okay, the Celtics started out dominant. They turned the switch off. During that stretch, they were 500, right? Then
Yep.
they flipped it back on, but right now, I think we're actually seeing the team flip it off again just a little bit. That's because they've won a bunch of games as of late. They played their tail. They've come out of All Star break. They've done everything right now in the regular season that they've really needed to do. And truly looking at the regular season with 13 games left, they've done mostly everything that they've wanted to do. They coasted throughout the mid portion of the season. They turned it back up. They turned it back on and up right before All Star break and then right after All Star break. And now we're getting into the portion of the schedule. This is right after the 7-game homestand, of course. We're getting into a portion of the schedule where a lot of these games are on the road, they're against bad teams. And I do wonder, even moving forward, because we've already seen it the last 3 games, I do wonder if this team is going to continuously kind of pull back the throttle, pull their foot off the gas a little bit in the next 13 games going into the playoffs. And from that standpoint, I go, okay, has the switch been flipped on enough this season for the Celtics to be that team who eventually flips it back on in the playoffs and goes on a run? Because again, the middle of the season, the Celtics were not playing well. We just came out of that. And it feels like, okay, now we're out of this. We're completely out of the muck right now. We're going. The mud's gone. The road is completely paved, and we're on the path. But then all of a sudden, the rain is still behind us. The rain's coming up a little bit. The rain's coming up, and we're slowing down. In the car, we're slowing down. The rain, of course, makes the road muddy. We're slowing down within the car right now. We just are. You see it in this game, you see the Miami game, the other Brooklyn game. The Celtics are slowing down right now, and I just wonder, have the Celtics actually put up enough data for us to do this again? And when I say for us to do this again, it's playing down to competition. It's not playing the Celtics' best brand of basketball. It's the Celtics taking some nights off whenever they really want to. And what we're talking about now, the Celtics' inconsistency. The last 3 games, yes, they're all wins for the Boston Celtics. That's the silver lining. That is a huge point to hit at. The Celtics are actually winning these games. But within all these games, there's been wild inconsistencies for the Boston Celtics. The Miami Heat, they played with the Boston Celtics. The Brooklyn Nets the other night, they went down 21 points to the Boston Celtics, came right back into the game, made it a 2-point game in the fourth quarter. Tonight, you saw the lead tracker, the Brooklyn Nets, they're really in control for most of this game tonight until the Celtics pull it out at the end. And there's special circumstances for all these games, considering the Celtics, a couple guys were in and out of the lineup, whether it was Porzingis, Horford, White, Brown, or Tatum. They were in and out of the lineup. Of course, weirdly enough, the one consistent guy in their last couple of games has been Drew Holiday. Last 3 games, that's been
Yes.
quite nice. I will say that's been quite nice. That's certainly the guy you want to see get going. But inconsistent personnel for the Celtics, so you got to take that with a grain of salt. You got to take the competition with a grain of salt. But at the same time, like just the situation in general, got to take with a grain of salt. But at the same time, I do look at it and go, okay, well, the Celtics, they're not playing their best brand of basketball right after a stretch where they just were. But when they just were, it was barely to me. I don't know if that's enough data for me to just go, okay, well, this team is just they're that they've turned the corner and they've turned the corner in some regard, but when you turn the corner, you have to keep going. You have to keep straight line going down the path. You can't just slow up. That's what it feels like the Celtics are doing right now is they're slowing up just a little bit. And I do wonder if that comes back to yeah, maybe beat them, but also maybe just hurt them in general come playoff time because the playoffs, the Celtics are going to need to play up to their competition and play beyond their competition every single playoff game. The Celtics can't take a game 5 off. They can't take a game 6 off. They can't take individual playoff games off. And through that schedule coming up, the playoff schedule that is, Celtics cannot be just going up and down. They really just cannot. And right now, I think that's the theme of the team. That's been the theme of the team all season. But I don't know if there's enough data within the season schedule right now to suggest, okay, this is not something to watch out for during playoff time. I think it's 1000% something to look out for come playoff time is the way the Celtics have been able to turn it on and turn it off because when they turn it on, they look incredible, but they really have a hard time turning it on all the time. And we're already getting to a portion of the season where they just turned it on and now they're starting to turn it back off. And I just don't. I'm like, is there enough? Like, have we gone through enough time of turning it on to say, all right, well, that was good. That was good. We turn it on. We'll turn it on. We'll turn it on later. That's great. I don't necessarily like that coming from the Boston Celtics, but I'm gonna say this. Earlier in the season, I said to everybody on this program, we need to recalibrate our expectations for who this team actually is right now because they just won a title. Some of these guys went to the Olympics, had a great summer, of course. Some of them got paid. They were partying all summer with their new money, their new championship ring, maybe a new gold medal. This team is going to be a little drawn back from going ahead and doing something like the Cavs are doing like right now, like the Thunder are doing right now, which is dominating the entirety of the NBA schedule. This Celtics team is a little more veteran led. Guys nearly a decade plus into the league, whoever you're talking about. Really, the average age on the Celtics, they're one of the older teams in the NBA all of a sudden. And from that standpoint, the Celtics are definitely a basketball team that is not going to win in a dominant fashion, but they're going to win more so like the Kansas City Chiefs did the last 2 or 3 seasons, where, oh, we don't have our speedster and Tyreek Hill anymore. We're not just going to beat everybody down the field throwing long balls. We're just going to methodically, in a timely manner, beat you in all the little spots of the game to pull out the win. That's where the Celtics, right now, it feels like they're doing that in these games specifically. Like these last 3 games, it felt like timely basketball. Like, oh, pick you apart right here, right here. Here's the moment. In the fourth quarter tonight, okay, the Celtics go ahead and run ahead of the Brooklyn Nets. But the Celtics this year, is that going to result in a championship? I obviously cannot say for certain, but that's where the Celtics are. They're an older, veteran-led squad. They're not going to dominate every single opponent, but they're going to come up with timely stops, timely buckets, and they're going to be able to pull out games, and they're going to have that veteran-led experience over some of these other NBA teams in the playoffs. And that's really what gives me confidence. It's almost we have to wait and see with this Boston Celtics club. I think other Celtics clubs in the past, you can see the rhythm and the momentum built up to a certain point. Right now, I think we're at a point where the rhythm and the momentum of this team, it's all over the place. And one could point at that easily and go, they're not ready for a back-to-back run. They're just not the same as OKC. They're not the same as Cleveland. They're not the same as some of these other opponents out west. But the Celtics, the stage in which they're in, they're an older squad. They're an older squad who's been there before, and they're waiting for a specific time of year to really turn up on the schedule. And that's what I said back in January. And right now it still remains true in March. And I don't know whether one way the Celtics are going to go, some of the versatility from last year fell off. There was a little bit of a regression, but with some players we've talked about this season, that's fallen off, and that's really what's going to beat the Celtics too. Not being dominant in the regular season, playing down to their opponent, turning the switch on and off. If that's going to come to beat them come playoff time, I don't know if that is going to come beat them in playoff time, or if the Celtics team is simply going to just flip the switch and look as dominant as they did last year during the playoffs, because they know, oh, wait, this is the actual NBA season. It's 0-0 now. This is the actual NBA season. It's time to go. So I know this is a huge, long-winded answer, but it needs to be said because I've been actually thinking about this. I'm glad you asked because I've been thinking about this for several days. How much trust and confidence do I have in this Celtics team actually going back-to-back this year? Because, again, the schedule. Started the season dominant. Mid portion of the season, you turn it off, you turn it back on, you go, oh, look, we're back on, we're dominant, here we go. And then we're starting to turn it off again. And I just don't know if that stretch of dominant basketball where we turned it on, if that is enough to say, okay, this team is just a switch flipping team. They'll be there come playoff time. They're exactly where they need to be. Because there's, on one hand, the vibes and rhythm around this team, it goes, I don't know. OKC, Cleveland, you lost to them at home. Kind of the back and forth of these games against worse opponents, not great. But then you look at the entirety of the year and the schedule and everything and go, well, this is exactly where they're supposed to be. Veteran-led squad. This is where they're supposed to be. So my gauge on the Celtics, it's never been this out of whack before. I think I've always had a good grip on this team is contending right now. They're at a good rhythm. They're going ahead. They're gonna go deep in the playoffs, whether that's conference finals. In the past, we've dreamed of finals. That's now a reality, obviously, for this team. Or a Celtics team has just been utterly horrendous and bad. This Celtics team is both awesome, they're great, they're good, but then they also have just their really meh moments, and you go, is that back-to-back material right there? I'm not certain, but I'll say this: no back-to-back championship has ever been easy. Every single back-to-back has come at this tilt. So through it all, through all the conversation that we have about the Celtics, the back-to-back season is always going to be like this. It's always going to be concerns, questions. Can they really do it? Is this team good enough as last year? It's always going to be like that until the actual trophy is in the air. And that's where we're at with the Boston Celtics at this moment in time. I'm glad that we're winning these games, but the way we're winning them, not amazing. Really not amazing. Tonight I'm willing to give leeway for, like, I'm not talking about tonight because really tonight it's like, okay, no Brown and Tatum. When I see that, where are the Celtics offensive creators? Drew Holiday, Derek White, they're taking over the offensive creation a lot more on a night like tonight. Some of the other guys who are out there too. But when you have your two biggest superstars out who create offense for you, all of a sudden the offense as a whole, how does it work? All the guys who are playing out there, their roles are completely shifted. They all of a sudden become more playmakers than shooters, or they might actually become creators out there on the floor rather than just stagnant shooters. And that's why tonight I'm not putting a ton of stock in, but I will say it does kind of go in with these slew of games where the Celtics have just kind of slid by there. But what is your opinion on this?
I think you nailed it right there. I love your example with the car ride, kind of like you were in great detail with that. Like they built a road at first, their road got damaged, and they were trying to build up the road, but then they start building the road and like start full head of steam, doing good, cruising along, and then starting to rain again. I love that example. I'm not worried about it because we even look at 500 basketball. Some of the playoff teams that are in the play-in in the Eastern Conference are not even 500, I believe. I'm pretty sure on that. We were looking at it today, and it's nuts. It baffles me. But the Boston Celtics, I think you said it perfectly. I think the Boston Celtics are gonna turn. We're yet to see it. We're yet to see it. But with veteran leadership and experience. Experience is the key word right there. Experience and veteran leadership. I think the Boston Celtics can go into playoffs and just dominate. I think that you're going to see a different Boston Celtics team. I love what you said. They're going to go into playoffs and they're going to be like, all right, it's 0-0 now. It's time to turn it up a notch, and it's time to win banner 19. I love what you said, and I kind of you said it perfectly, so there's not much more for me to say on that. But I want to answer your question on who shocked me the most tonight. I don't think he shocked me necessarily, and you kind of already said it. Reason I'm wearing the main jersey.
Wait, quick, pull this back up for the viewers, real quick. Pull this back up. The jersey, the jersey. Pull this back up. That is vintage Maine Red Claws, folks. Everybody's on the Maine Celtics trade now. Maine Celtics. But Maine Red Claws, folks. They should have kept that name. I mean, the Celtics bought the Maine Red Claws. That's why they're now called the Maine Celtics. But the Maine Red Claws, only as time moves ahead, I'll say this, Griffin, only the OGs will know about the Maine Red Claws. I mean, I wish I could find this photo, but I remember in 2018, right before LeBron's free agency, Sports Center, ESPN, they were fooling around. They threw up a LeBron in a Maine Red Claws jersey graphic. I feel like I have to find this right now.
Was that like the Soto thing then with MLB? Like they were putting him in like college uniforms and stuff? Is that kind of what they were doing with LeBron?
Yeah, it was just a general jersey swap. So let's see. The end.
I want to show something. Look, so this is vintage. All right, so Anton Watson not on the team anymore.
Wait, okay. So they wore the throwbacks this year, correct?
They did. They brought back Maine Celtics night. But if you look at Anton, those are the recent Maine Red Claws jerseys. So this is old. Like this is old. So if you want to just check that out, see they have the green on it. So a lot different. But
it says Red Claws. The other one, this one, I think the one that LeBron's wearing. I found it.
No way.
Yeah. Okay, so first of all, the date on this, June 24th, 2018.
Oh my gosh. Okay.
Yes. Yes.
Oh my gosh, look at that.
That's nice.
LeBron with
wait. Pull up your the jersey.
Oh, this one or the other one?
Yeah, no, yours. But you can do both of them because So this one and this one. Oh yeah,
are kind of similar. And then you see the green right there on the jersey. You got it kind of. That's crazy. That's crazy. Incredible. LeBron in the Maine Red Claws. I love it.
Lighting here. Oh, there we go. Well, yeah, but that was from 2018. So, yeah, I'm just saying it's the Maine Red Claws. Shout out to the Maine Red Claws and the Maine Celtics, of course. Maine Red Claws, of course, some Celtics talent going through there. It's always, you know what they should do? G League assignment, because I believe Anthony Davis was just sent down to the Mavericks G League. They gotta. I want to see a player do a photo shoot in a G League uniform, like, I'm here to practice. Like, say earlier, like this season, like Porzingis is there to practice with the Maine Celtics, but then I want to see him do a photo shoot too. That's what I want to see.
I agree. That would be incredible. Like and representing that would do good for the G League team, and that would bring, I think, money in a sense. But I'll get right into it though. Baylor Shireman though, my G League guy. I've watched him all year in Maine. They actually come back to the expo on Thursday, so I'll be there. But Baylor, it was that first three in the first, and it was just electric. That's what Shireman does in the G League. And then you saw him with a steal in the first, and then we want to talk about that buzzer beater in the third. Looked like Peyton Pritchard out there. But one thing I gotta say, and I think I'm gonna sound like a mockingbird because I think I said it on one of the post-game shows, or it might have been the podcast I did with David. But a thing about Baylor Shireman, and a thing you guys gotta know, is Baylor Shireman is doing exactly what he does. Like his good nights, I think he had was it 15 or 14 his other time, whatever, when he had a good game. Baylor Shireman does that and some in the G League, and tonight that's what he does in the G League. I mean, Baylor tonight, I already mentioned it, but he had 20 points, 3 rebounds, 1 assist, 2 steals, and shot 87.5% from the field goal tonight. And I wrote this down in my notes too, that Baylor Shireman is completely different from Drew Peterson and JD Davison. Those are my boys. I'm not going to diss on them, but a thing that you notice to see with them is they'll come up to the NBA and they will not do what they do in the G League. JD Davison is on a tear right now, scoring like 30 points a game in the G League. And you could see that with Drew Peterson too, closing out games. They come up, they'll have little things, but they don't showcase what they do in the G League. Baylor Shireman, he does exactly what he does tonight in the G League. There's performances in the G League that all he has is 11 points. There's performances for the Boston Celtics that he comes out there and has 7 points. So he is a player that can. That's just how he plays. Like the Baylor Shireman you see in the G League that I watched and witnessed all G League season is how he can play for Maine, not Maine, the Boston Celtics. And going on moving forward, kind of too, like I think a big thing to having the Boston Celtics repeat is having that new experience, having that new energy in there with Baylor Shireman, because you heard it on the broadcast today. A way to earn playing time is your defense, and he is incredible on defense. His shot is incredible, and he's just a hustle player, and that's what he did in the G League, and that's what he's doing up now with the Boston Celtics. And he just impresses me because it's like you saw JD, you saw what happened with JD. He got time, he didn't prove himself. They sent him to the G League. Baylor Shireman, they're giving him time, and he's like, all right, if you guys are going to give me time, I'm going to show you exactly what I do in the G League. I'm going to give you a heart and hustle. And that's exactly what he did. But other than that, I think Drew Holiday, you already mentioned it. Drew Holiday had only 12 points, but still that was enough to kind of back up for it. He had 6 rebounds and 8 assists. And Pritchard didn't do much, 10 points. Derek White, 18 points, five rebounds, 4 assists, 1 block. Derek White too. He impressed me too. Like I'm gonna say, he impressed me a lot because we already kind of mentioned this. We've been mentioning this a lot, but the reason why I believe too the Boston Celtics are on such a great roll right now is because Derek White is back. We've mentioned this, so I won't talk about it much. But you'll obviously get into it as it's the player spotlight. But Porzingis too. I mean, look at the stat line: 25 points and 13 rebounds. You can't get over it. But that's who impressed me the most tonight. I would say Baylor Shireman was a player because he's a rookie. He hasn't got a lot of time with Boston. So for him to go out there and did what he did, incredible. And that's really impressed me as I've seen him grown. So it's like whenever Walsh is out there doing good, Kada, Shireman, Peterson, Davison, even, like I love it. I love to see it because I watch those players in the G League. So it's like, I saw them like when they're young, getting experience, and then they get better and go to the G League. And I'm excited because I missed out on Sam Hauser in the G League, Luke Cornett, Peyton Pritchard. But now I'm seeing a person, Baylor Shireman, who I think can eventually turn into one of those role players. So that's all I got to say on that. Who impressed you the most tonight for the Boston Celtics?
Well, it's the same answer of yourself, of course. Baylor Shireman comes out with a career high, scores 20 points tonight, and Baylor Shireman, look, people are going to say this after this game. I already saw it in the group chat, just saying, saw it in our group chat already. People are going to think he's going to come in and replace Sam Hauser. That's just what they think. That's what they're going to claim here is Baylor Shireman is that guy to replace Sam Hauser. Here he comes, our next Sam Hauser. That could very well be true in the future. Sam Hauser replacing, Baylor Shireman replacing Sam Hauser within the lineup, and maybe the totem pole of importance for the Boston Celtics later on in time, considering Sam Hauser's contract to some of his play this year. Baylor Shireman, much more team friendly with the rookie deal contract on the books. But Baylor Shireman tonight comes out and scores 20 points, and he has his best game of the season. The only one that rivals this is the 76ers game from a couple of weeks ago. But Baylor Shireman tonight, I will say this: I'm not gonna overreact over one game and say, oh, he's gonna replace Sam Hauser. Oh, all these playoff minutes are coming his way. But I will say we were talking about Baylor Shireman. We were talking about Torrey Craig, two potential players, even Jordan Walsh. We'll throw him into that
Yeah.
equation as well. Three potential players: Walsh, Shireman, Craig, who could potentially take some minutes from Sam Hauser come playoff time, or take minutes from maybe somebody within the rotation higher up during the playoffs as a rotation player off the bench, because that's what ultimately Sam Hauser is doing. So if you're taking Sam Hauser's minutes, you're taking somebody else's minutes, like say Tatum or Brown or whoever, right? But we were talking about those three players potentially making a name for themselves within the rotation come season's end, considering how spotty Sam Hauser's production has been all season up to this point. We were talking about, could one of those guys slot more into the playoff rotation? Could they gain themselves a couple of more minutes? Could they be the Sam Hauser replacement? And when I say replacement, I really mean maybe you cut into his minutes just a little bit. Instead of seeing Sam Hauser out there for 15 minutes, maybe you only see him out there for 8 minutes, and you see Baylor Shireman out there for 8 minutes, or Torrey Craig out there for 8 minutes, something like that. We're not talking huge margins for the Celtics, but little margins that will matter come playoff time, in between everything big that goes out there on the floor.
Yeah,
But Baylor Shireman, go ahead.
Sorry to interrupt you. I just wanted to add something. Do you think, oh, really quick, got this right here too, right by the setup, so I had to show that off.
Oh, wait, bring that out real quick. The top thing, do you think the main Celtics, not to get off too, it's Baylor Shireman. We're talking about Baylor Shireman. So in the clip, this is all going to work for the clip, folks. Afterwards, post the clips. This main Celtics logo at the top. I think they should have that Celtics on the jersey with the claw. I mean, I'm kind of.
Yeah,
They need a white jersey with that. I kind of like it. I kind of like it.
yeah, I like that. That would be fire. I love that for sure. Oh yeah. Oh
The
yeah.
way I will say, the way they have the text on the little gray box there next to them. See that little text in the gray box? Oh, looks like it's a Getty Images thing. That is so funny.
Yeah, no,
It
it's
looks like a Getty. Some folks out there, the editing world, it looks like a Getty Images photo. But anyway,
you
uh,
got them right there too. The two rookie, well, not rookie anymore, but got them right there. One thing I wanted to ask you though. Sorry, I got off topic with the Baylor Shireman thing, but I want to
that was firmly on topic for what we're talking about.
yeah, on topic, distraction. I want to ask you this. Obviously, we see Baylor Shireman is a hustle player and phenomenal on defense. Do you think instead of kind of replacing all of Sam Hauser's minutes, they're kind of going to give it more like a kind of like honestly, I want to call it a high school vibe, and kind of have Sam Hauser out there for offensive possession and have Baylor Shireman try to check right in on defensive possession? Do you think that could be like a possibility in a game? Or kind of, if you need some defense, they're going to lean more towards Shireman rather than obviously Sam Hauser? What are your thoughts regarding that?
I think it could be a game by game type of basis.
Yeah.
I'm not with those guys specifically. I'm not of the idea that they're going to be the ones who are swapped
Playing.
out defensively, offensively, because it'll be guys like Tatum and Brown, and not even Tatum and Brown. I don't even want to say those guys. It's really the big guys, really Horford, Porzingis, guys like that. Holiday, White, Tatum, and Brown. Those are really the versatile players you want out there 24/7 if you're the Boston Celtics, ideally. And then the big man, depending on how versatile they are, the matchups we're facing, that's when you're kind of going offense, defense, whether you're going to Cornette, Horford, or Porzingis, and whatever moment of the game. The guys off the bench, to me, in the playoffs, they are strictly meant for filling minutes for, say, Tatum or Brown off the bench, and those minutes are going to come. All right, those guys have to rest at some point in time. They can't just play 48 minutes every single playoff game. They're going to try to. They're going to try to come close to it, but they can't do it every single playoff game. But those minutes in between are important to give Tatum and Brown some rest. And could Shireman be in there? I think the recent play, I'm not going to over exaggerate over it because we haven't seen a big sample size of it this season. And I mean, I will say the two best performances of the season for Shireman have come in spots that is specifically called on him to perform this year. In all these other games, he's coming to games where I don't really expect him to be that productive. I expect him to fill minutes. He might make a shot or two while he's out there. And defensively, he's going to be a just fine piece within the system. But tonight, Shireman comes out there into a game where Brown and Tatum are not playing. So already right there, Shireman's going to find a lot more minutes, which tonight, let me just get his how many minutes? Let's see. Baylor Shireman played. Sorry,
Minutes.
folks, don't have the numbers in front of me right
16
now.
minutes.
16 minutes. So I was going to say, whoever gets to it first here, because
16.
NBA.com.
I got it right down on my cheat sheet. Right here, got the cheat sheet. Got 16.
So Baylor Shireman, 16 minutes tonight, so 15:55. Set 7 of 8 from the floor, 6 of 7 from 3, 20 points, 3 rebounds, 1 assist, 2 steals for Baylor Shireman on the night. I look at this performance, I go, look, he in this spot was called upon to come and play well off the bench against a lesser team. He was called upon to come in and play well against a lesser team in the Sixers. Those are two games where it's so far from what the Celtics are actually going to see come playoff time, which is little chest movements, high intensity, the environment of the arena, whether it's a home game or an away game. That's going to be beyond when it comes to the playoffs for the Boston Celtics. And these games in between at the end of the year, the Sixers game that Shireman played well in a couple weeks ago, this game tonight he played well in. These are two games that yes, it's good data for me to go, okay, Shireman could put his name. I'm saying if you're looking at Craig Shireman Walsh right now, who is the guy who's going to maybe fill in some minutes for Sam Hauser? I've been most impressed with Shireman as of late. Just saying, out of all three of those, Torrey Craig has gotten, I don't know what it is with the Celtics or what it is with Joe Mazzulla's coaching staff. Maybe we can get more into this, but I don't know what it is with the bench and not playing guys that seem like obvious. I during portions of the season, especially during January when things weren't working well, there were guys off the bench where we're looking at going, well, why not just play him? Why not play Xavier Tillman out there? When Jaden Springer was on the roster, of course, it was always him. Jaden Springer. Play Jaden Springer more. He's defensive spark plug. Offensively, he's rough, but defensively, he is a spark plug. Now it's Torrey Craig. I mean, Torrey Craig in these games, I am very shocked to see how often Torrey Craig isn't playing on the floor for the Boston Celtics. And that's the biggest thing for him because right now, tonight, plays 8 minutes. 8 minutes. And that could be because, maybe he's an older player. Maybe you're saving a little bit of mileage on him. But I would have him ramp up a little bit more come playoff time if you really intend on using him more than 8 minutes in a game like tonight. If you're the Boston Celtics using Torrey Craig. Torrey Craig has not been used in the way that I thought he would be for the Celtics off the bench. Maybe they're still ramping him up, but at the same time, 8 minutes off the bench, that's not very many minutes. Meanwhile, Shireman gets 16 tonight, had a couple more minutes recently, and he's been impressing out there. And he's a player with a higher ceiling, right? We know what Torrey Craig is as a 34-year-old, 34-year-old. We know what Torrey Craig is, but Shireman, he is an unknown entity. And what's always interesting in the NBA, I will say, season by season, and specifically the singular seasons, right now, is we kind of forget how developed a player can become by the end of a season. So right now, there is a lot of opinion that exists out in the NBA community about players from October and November. They started out a certain way in October, November, December, and people go, okay, here's this player's abilities. Here's what they've been able to do this season, yada, yada. Now it's into March. Those players have had another 3 months plus to develop, and maybe they've added a little bit to their game. Maybe their shot seems to be flowing a little bit more, a little silky smooth, more reps in the gym. It's all about repetitions in the gym with everything. Different looks. Maybe a player, maybe he has all the skill out there in the world, but maybe his decision making just isn't there. And over the last 3 months, his decision making has really upticked to a point where he can get out there on the floor. Players will develop within an NBA season, especially young players. And Shireman, I believe, is that player right now that for the Boston Celtics, we thought could play some minutes with this team, being a more NBA ready prospect this year. Hasn't happened, but at this point in time, Shireman, he could be developed to a point where over the next 13 games, he could make his spot and his name known for a potential rotation spot come playoff time. It's not going to be a major rotation spot, but it's going to be a role where he comes in for 6 to 8 minutes and he's filling in some big minutes for guys like Brown and Tatum. So Shireman, his performance tonight easily stuck out to me, but I want to hear what you have to say there.
Yeah, sorry. I have one more thing. You talked about that kind of the development, and I hated when I went to the main Celtics games earlier this season. I hated what they did to him and Anton. They would start them out on the bench. Baylor did not start for a couple of games. I feel like they even started Anton over him a couple times, and I was like, why are we starting Baylor on the bench? Like, what's going on? I'm looking at it a little more, and I think they wanted to kind of start him off and get him used and adjust to getting off the bench. I don't think that's the complete reason. I think they wanted to see what he could provide for them. But at the same time, I'm going to look at it in this mindset. I'm going to say that they knew that, look, you're going to come off the bench for the Boston Celtics, so you got to get used to that role. I think a thing that they may have messed up with JD Davison is I didn't go to his games when he first started there, but I'm sure they started him right from the get-go. And now the reason with JD Davison, the reason why he doesn't come up is because he's the guy. Like in Maine, if you go to a Maine Celtics game, you're there for JD Davison because he's that guy. Like he's going to start and he's going to control the pace of the game. He's not, I would say he's on the more selfish side. He passes, but does he pass as much as he should? No, but they kind of made him kind of that guy, and that's why it's so hard to bring him up to the Boston Celtics because he's used to being that guy in the G League. And then when you take a person who's that guy and then try to push him into the game when there's 2 minutes left or in points where we need you, it's not going to work. So I love what they did with Baylor Shireman because they kind of got him adjust to kind of coming off the bench, taking in that role. And over the course of the season, they obviously started him more and he got more experience. And I love what you said. It was against less meaningful teams. It really was that he had these amazing performances. But we also got to think he's had more opportunity. I feel like 16 minutes isn't a lot of opportunity anyways, opposed to like playing in the 20s, the 30s, you know. But I think this. I think, and I say this because what you guys see when Baylor Shireman is at his peak, you know, like his peak performances he would have, that's what he does in the G League. Now, the competition is a lot less intense in the G League, obviously. Like, people are hungry there, but it's not like you're going against LeBron James, you know, in the G League. You're not. It's just undeniable that you're not going. The best competition, like veteran-wise, I would say is TJ Warren down there. So that's probably the best you're going against, veteran-wise. So it's definitely a lot different. But I love what Shireman's doing because it reminds me of what he's done in his peak in the G League. And I'm like, all right, well, if he could do this for the Boston Celtics, and I've seen him do this exact thing for the Maine Celtics, I think that's completely in his game, and I think he could transition over to the Boston Celtics eventually in his career. And I love how they developed him. I will say this, the Maine Celtics get a round of applause because they did a great job so far developing Shireman.
No, we're not giving him the golf. I gave him the golf clap. No, give him. There we go. We go.
We get the golf clap.
Real
golf
applause.
Clap.
Real
golf
applause. Clap. The main.
Celtics. No golf clap. We're giving them the real.
No,
applause?
that's what I'm saying. Yeah, regular, and not the. This is for the Nets. This clap is for the Nets.
Yeah,
just nice guys. KD, Kyrie, Harden. The Nets. Maine Celtics. Maine Celtics. Here we go. Maine
They
Celtics.
did a
Here we
great
go.
job developing him. I'm impressed. I'm impressed. What are your thoughts though on that? Do you think kind of having him start off and kind of come off the bench was more so the Maine Celtics could see what they have with him, or do you think it was kind of also in a sense of developing, meaning like we don't want you to be the guy down here because we want you to make yourself a career in the NBA? What are your thoughts along that line?
Well, the natural process of somebody becoming a real NBA player, you really look at every player really in the NBA. A lot of them do not have the greatest starts of their careers. You look at every single player out there, whether star or role player, and there had to be some kind of ascension to the game in which they play today. Whether, some guys, they're at different places in their career, but if there's somebody who is somewhat established in the NBA, who's gotten to their second contract in the NBA, their start typically pretty slow. You see that every single time. And some of those slow starts can be, slower than others, whether it's in the G League or not in the G League. Think about a player, some of the generational players like Luka Doncic. He started out as a near all-star candidate, but even so, some of the players you see, LeBron James, 21 time all-star, first season didn't make the all-star team. So even the all-time greats, they start out fairly slow in the NBA. But most players, just on the average end, and talk about average, I mean, these guys aren't average basketball players. They're quite great, but just in terms of the NBA relativity of average, a lot of guys do spend some time in the G League, and I think we're starting to see that more and more, especially in this era, this generation of basketball players coming up. A lot of these guys are spending time in the G League first, especially the role players, before they come to the NBA and make a real impact. And it's just a way to get reps. I just talked about repetitions, but those reps are important. I mean, beforehand, if you didn't have a G League team, if you're an NBA team, because not every squad had a G League team at one point, and they typically had an affiliate to some degree. Like you might have, trying to think of an old one off the top of my head here, where they sent their guys down. I don't know, it's so long ago, where you would have something weird. Oh, this, I guess this one, maybe this one. I believe the Nuggets used to send their players to the Pistons G League squad. I might be mistaken on that, but it was things like that where you would see, like, you would see another team send. So like you'd have the Miami Heat, the Sioux Falls Skyforce. You might have, the Grizzlies send their G Leaguers up there. Obviously now you have the Memphis Hustle, but that's what I'm saying. Nowadays every team is supposed to have their own G League team, whereas beforehand a lot of teams, they didn't quite have the G League affiliate. They didn't have the whole process set in stone, and they didn't have as many two-way contracts either. The three two-way contracts, that's new upon the new CBA. You only had two two-way contracts beforehand, and even before the two-way contracts, you had zero. You didn't have any two-way contracts. So nowadays, you have those three spots on your roster at the end, even after your standard spots, for those guys who are going to go develop down in the G League, typically second round rookies, or guys who you're just kind of wanting to develop more so in the NBA, from whatever player they are, whatever kind of player they are. But we're seeing more and more of the NBA landscape become guys who have come from the G League in some way, shape, or form. And I think that's the route that a lot of teams are going to try to go down nowadays, is when they bring in a player, when they can't get minutes right away, especially Baylor Shireman. Let's talk about Baylor Shireman real quick. I mean, we've been talking about him, but specifically with this example, he's playing on a team, a Boston Celtics squad, where he's not getting reps night in and night out with the Boston Celtics. He's just not. He's sitting on the bench most of the nights when the Celtics are actually playing their real 8, 9, 10 man rotation. And Shireman, if you're just sitting there on the bench, the best he can do is watch film and play whenever he can play and practice, which is, again, NBA teams do not practice throughout the NBA regular season. It's very rare teams really practice. And Shireman, if he was just sitting on the bench, where would his run exactly come from? I mean, it would have to come from these runs of picking up with other guys in practice. So the G League is a huge tool to develop these players, and the reps they get down in the G League are crucial because you're playing basketball. You're playing basketball, and it's supposed to be in an NBA setting too. A lot of these guys, of course, not quite NBA level, but there are quite a few players in the G League who have either played in the NBA before or certainly have NBA caliber talent or skill sets, depending on how you look at it from whatever angle the player, whatever position a player plays and whatever skill sets come with that position. A lot of players have the NBA skill sets down there, but they might have one or two things missing in their games that just keeps them from going and advancing to the NBA. So the G League is a tremendous tool to develop guys and really get them to where they want to go within a singular season. And we're just gonna see more and more and more of it as time goes on because the NBA has invested heavily in the G League, and we're seeing a lot of success stories come from the G League. And this could be a success story, another one for the Boston Celtics. I mean, look already at all the players on the Boston Celtics roster who have come from the G League. I mean, you have Sam Hauser. He spent time in the G League as a two-way player. You look at Luke Cornett. He's spent time in the G League with the Celtics. Kada, he's spent time in the G League with the Celtics. If I'm not mistaken, Pritchard has come down there with the Boston Celtics and actually done some work. So, and wait, I want to just point this out real quick. Just throw this out. This is totally aside the point. Every time, this is so easy to say though, but the Celtics, the Celtics and the Celtics. Okay, I was about to Celtics and Red Claws, but no more Red Claws. Celtics and Celtics. The main Celtics and the Boston Celtics, right? The main Celtics are up in Portland, Maine, right? And the Boston Celtics are down in Boston, Massachusetts, obviously. But it's so easy when you're talking about the G League, like the minor league, when you're going down somewhere, like we'll always say going down to Maine, as in down to the G League, but then we're really going up to Portland. I always just see that every time we say down, 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 up, up. It's like it doesn't sometimes doesn't always correlate, like match. I just said it because I just said down to Portland, and I'm like, I always hear guys say that down to Portland. I'm like, it's up to Portland, It's up to Portland. So it's a little geography, G League, whatever there. But
I never thought of it like that.
But I always catch that. I'm like, oh, down to Portland. It's like technically going up.
So would you say they're more so getting sent down? So people should clarify it and just say
they're getting sent down to.
They're getting sent up. They're getting sent up.
They're right. They're getting sent up to go down. They're getting sent up to go down. That's what it is.
Listen,
that's what it is.
If you're in the Celtics system, like Drew Peterson, we could say, and JD Davison, when you guys get sent back down to the G League, it's not necessarily a bad thing because technically you're getting sent up.
But back to the main point here is those guys going up and down. The Celtics have already had a great track record with the developing guys in the G League and actually winning a championship with guys who have come from the G League in the rotation. And Baylor Shireman, I'm just saying, definitely could be that next guy. I know you're saying it too, but it definitely looks like, and I'll say this about Sharman too, NBA ready body. Last year coming out of college, just his skill set in general, his frame, everything that comes with him, didn't quite get in the rotation right away. But this is where I look at him and go, okay, well, he's had a whole season up in Maine, right? Up in Maine to develop, and he's not breaking into the rotation right now, but he's playing pretty good minutes against some of the lesser opponents. I'm not convinced he's going to come into the playoffs and just go full force to a point where he's taking over Sam Hauser's role. We're never going to see Sam Hauser, and Baylor Shireman's going to play 16, 15 minutes a game, whatever it is. I don't think I'm at that point with Baylor Shireman whatsoever. I think we're likely going to see Baylor Shireman on the bench a lot come playoff time. But at the same time, I do look at Shireman and go, okay, well, there's definitely been some development here that suggests to me that he is a little bit different right now than he is at the beginning of the NBA season. I would specifically expect that with him because he is a multi-year college guy. He was a prospect who came in NBA ready. He's had reps in the G League. He's a little bit older than some of the typical prospects his age. And from all of those factors, Shireman is definitely a player I would expect to make more of a jump right now in the NBA than, say, a typical 18, 19-year-old coming out of college 1 year, coming from overseas. Shireman, he's been in college. He's been in the G League. He has developed. He's had those reps over time. He's definitely a player that I see as somebody who could make their way into the rotation for the Celtics one day. Maybe it's not these playoffs, but maybe it's even next season later on down the line. That's actually kind of what we saw with Sam Hauser. 2022 playoffs wasn't really a part of the rotation. Kind of threw around some ideas with him in the rotation as a shooter. Celtics needed shooting at that point in time, the 21-22 season. But Sam Hauser's full impact really wasn't known or made until the 22-23 season. And then, of course, we know the story of Sam Hauser since then, really just been a staple to the Celtics rotation ever since 2022-23. But another player becoming an absolute staple to the Celtics rotation, not becoming, he already is a staple, and that is when he's healthy. And that is, of course, Kristaps Porzingis. Kristaps Porzingis is back, folks. Now, Kristaps Porzingis missed 9 of the last 10 Celtics games before the last game where Kristaps Porzingis came out against the Brooklyn Nets, made his return to the floor, played phenomenally. But Kristaps Porzingis getting 2 days rest from that game in Brooklyn the other night, his great performance the other night, does it again. 25 points, 13 rebounds, 3 assists, 3 blocks, 1 steal for Kristaps Porzingis, 9 of 13 from the floor, 6 of 8 from the free throw line. A super efficient game for Kristaps Porzingis in the lineup. A little weird tonight to see Kristaps in the lineup along with Drew Holiday and Derek White and Al Horford, but not see Tatum and Brown. It felt like all the players who are typically not healthy were healthy and in the lineup, and all the players who are healthy, they were out of the lineup tonight. But I'm glad to see Kristaps Porzingis back out there doing his thing. Kristaps Porzingis wins his second straight player spotlight, which is brought to you by SeatGeek. Don't forget to use code Celtics Weekly at checkout of your first purchase on SeatGeek for 20% off your order. SeatGeek has all your seats out there for every single sporting event. Go check out SeatGeek. They've been amazing for the Celtics Talk Weekly program this season. But our player spotlight, which is brought to you by SeatGeek tonight, Kristaps Porzingis making his return to the floor. Kristaps recently haven't seen him out there too much. We were really concerned. Look, this time last week, we were concerned about Kristaps Porzingis. Was he even gonna return to the floor this season? That was actually the catastrophic view of that tweet. It was really just a tweet. It was one simple tweet that we kind of blew up, overreacted over, thought, oh, viral illness, where he doesn't know what it is, what's going on. Yeah. And now all of a sudden, Kristaps Porzingis is back in the lineup, just won his second straight player spotlight tonight, and doesn't look like he's missed a beat whatsoever. Griffin, your thoughts on Kristaps Porzingis' performance tonight?
So I want to start it off. While you were having that up, I was trying to put on the Porzingis jersey.
Ooh, the finals jersey.
Yeah,
that's like a game. That's like game 5 specifically. I don't think he ever wore that jersey outside of game 5.
No, I had to add on the.
That's the championship winning jersy right there. The green Celtics jersey with the finals logo at the back, like that. Yeah, that is we won the championship in that specific edition of the jersey. Yes. That one right there.
Yep. I was trying to put it on, but the red looked weird under it, so I'm like, whatever. I'll just show it.
If it was December 25th, it would.
Oh, yeah.
Or 23rd.
Right. You have a good idea. All right. You have a good idea upcoming. All right. I know that for next season now. I'll wear the.
You just have 9 months.
9 months. 9 months. I gotta write it down. But
somebody has fun tonight in 9 months when it comes out. We'll be prepared.
We will. Yeah. Yep. It was a test, and I was like, all right, yeah, you hit it right there. Christmas Day jersey for sure. But
bring them back, NBA. Every time it's mentioned, bring back the Christmas Day jerseys. It's ridiculous.
Know. But I like what the Celtics do. I like how they wear all the red, but have them wear the red with the Christmas jerseys. Come on. What are you doing? What are you doing?
I know it's society going back. McDonald's, you got to be open 24 hours, and in the NBA, you got to bring back Christmas jerseys. That's the only way society is going to move forward. That's just what it is.
Yep.
That is just what it is.
That is what it is. But realistically, I think you said it. We were scared. we had all kinds of conspiracies last week. But we were thinking, oh, it could be this, it could be this, it could be that. I think we ultimately came to the decision, well, at least I mentioned it, that Porzingis needs to stay off Twitter or social media and stop saying yes to fans asking if he's playing in the Lakers game, and stop tweeting, because that made us scared. But I said something today in one of my classes for college. I was talking about in sports management. I said the thing that was concerning is that the Boston Celtics didn't come out and upfront say anything about Porzingis. All we've seen was illness, illness, illness. We haven't heard anything. We haven't really heard much from the Celtics media about his illness. The only thing that we saw was that tweet, and that's what caused us to build up these conspiracies and build up this worriness, I feel like. So if he never tweeted that, I feel like the concern level, yeah, we like, obviously we said it, we would be a little concerned if he kept missing games, but we wouldn't be like panic, panic, panic. What's going on with Porzingis? Is he okay? Is he not gonna play another game this season, like you were mentioning on? It was scary, especially unknown illness, like what? But for him to come out and have such a dominant game, obviously we could give credit. All right, it's the Nets, but he was dominant tonight. And I also wrote this down. Like, he had the Boston Celtics first 7 points, and he showed tonight that, all right, we're not hitting the 3 ball as of early. We could score in different fashions. We could score in the paint. Look at Porzingis. He's a great person that you could throw a lob up to and score in the paint. He's the prime example of that, and he's the prime example of when the Boston Celtics are on, it's because of Derek White, Porzingis. It's a team effort, but Porzingis definitely helps contribute to that portion. And I think ultimately, when you think about the playoffs this year, you're gonna most likely have to go through the tough Cavs, and you're gonna need Porzingis. If it could happen, you're gonna go against OKC if it's bound to happen, and you're gonna need the hard fighting Porzingis. So that's just how it's gonna have to be. But ultimately, I think his performance tonight was just incredible. You look at the 3 blocks, even like it just shows you how much we've missed Porzingis. The 13 rebounds, it's like, all right, I love it when Luke does it, but it's something different about when Porzingis does it, and it's been missed. And I'm big on Porzingis, and there were a lot of questions this year, at least on my podcast. Should we move on from Porzingis? Is he an issue? No. I think there were a lot of
getting deep.
Yeah, there were a lot. We had someone on for a little bit, and he was saying, I think they should get rid of Porzingis, and kind of pinpointing it, or Holiday. I'm like, whoa, Porzingis needs to stay. Because you look at this, like, this is what Porzingis can do, especially like he can, on any given night, he could score 30. He just doesn't have to, because look how built the Boston Celtics are. They have a great team. But ultimately, I feel like when you go into a playoff setting, a healthy Porzingis and a healthy Boston Celtics team, you're going to see Brown giving you around 20. You're going to see Tatum giving you around 20. And you could even see Porzingis up there giving you in the teens to the 20s, Like, that's just what he does. And he's such a threat in the paint, and he makes teams plan against him. And if they find him out in the paint, he'd go out and give you a deep 3. Like, he's incredible. And I look back to kind of, I was hurt obviously in the Smart trade, because I'm a big fan of Smart, but that first
also main Red Claw for a game or two, I will say.
Really, I didn't even know that. See, no, I want to say this, and I'll finish I want to say this, and I'll finish my take. But I am very impressed with your knowledge on the G League. And honestly, a lot of it's higher than mine. I'm not even lying, and I watch every game. But like, even knowing the Heat's G League team, I know a lot of I think I know pretty much all of the G League teams. But to hear you out there throwing out good names like that, I love it. I love it.
Here we go. Well, I just had it.
What was all of Smart?
Oh yeah.
Look at that. Okay, I remember. See, look, that's when they had these kind of jerseys. Yep, you see it? That this was probably like their away jersey.
Bam. Well, this was like what? This had to have been 2014 or 2014-15 would have been the season.
Yeah.
because that was Smart's rookie year. He probably now see this is okay. So see, there's some fake ones out there, but there's some real one. Obviously, like I just saw Rondo in a Maine Red Claws jersey, but I'm like that one was. I'm pretty sure that was fake. He
Yeah.
might have still played with the Red Claws, but the one I just saw was fake. But hey, shout out to another Maine Red Claw real quick though. Robert Williams. Okay,
Rob,
Robert Williams across the league in the other Portland. Hey, he went from Portland to Portland. All right, Portland, Maine, all the way over to
ooh,
Portland,
you did it.
Oregon. Just
You did it.
saying.
You did it. It's a main
There he
night.
is.
I'm telling you, it's a main night. Baylor Shireman with a 20 points. It's a main night tonight. You could also throw out some other great names out there, Taco Fall and all of them, all his glory, the Mr. Taco Fall. What about Bruno Fernando? I think I'm saying his name right. He was
Yes,
good. He
Bruno
played mid.
Fernando. We got Walt Lemon Jr. We got PJ Dozier. We
All
got
right. Denzel Valentine.
got Kadeem Allen, Jabari Bird. Some other Ben Bentel.
Okay,
That
all
one
right.
Gershon Yabusele for
Yahoo. So, all right, I'm
think he-
taking off the crown and I'm giving it to you. You beat me. You beat me with the main
No.
Celtics. I'm not even lying.
No,
you
it's
beat
it.
me.
No, I'm not in a G League city. I'm not in a G League
I'm
city.
saying though, you beat me. Like I couldn't say names out like that. I really couldn't. I couldn't. So you get the crown for now. I'll win it back though. I'll get my G League knowledge up a little more, and then I'll
No.
get them. But I'm giving it to you for now. I'm giving
First of all, you can't give me the crown. You're the one actually outside the arena
you're right.
interviewing these players. You could be one day, just saying, on a first name basis with some of these guys because of how often they see you. Me, I just know some Robert Williams and Marcus Smart played for the Maine Red Claws. They played with the Celtics. They developed with the Celtics. They spent some time down there. Another one, I was like, no one cares. I was like, James Young from a long time ago. I don't know how we got off on this tangent. We were talking about Kristaps Porzingis because Porzingis had a phenomenal performance tonight, 25 points.
And he played for the Maine Celtics. He played a practice.
Right. I was just about to mention that. I go, for one practice, him and Tillman.
So it's relevant.
Tillman came down.
It's relevant. I just gotta finish it though, like really quick. But sorry, I didn't mean to interrupt. It's quick. I'm so big on Porzingis, and what he did tonight was just it's the Porzingis we missed, and it's the Porzingis that all right. We were super worried about him about a week ago. We were honestly running around with a chicken with our head cut off because we didn't know what was going to go down with him. Is he going to be out? Like what's going on? Viral illness, like we have no answers. But then for him to build up, I think it made me so happy. I think it was in Miami. Yeah, it was in Miami when we saw him shooting around and we're like, oh my gosh, he's coming back.
Yeah.
And back to
That
back.
was the one game, really. Like he was not back yet.
But
that was the one game we came in here. We're like, he's shooting around. He's at shootout. He looks fine, but I should say he's on the bench. He traveled with the team. He's at shoot around. He's practicing.
Yeah.
It's like, oh, that tweet was nothing. That tweet was nothing. And then he finally comes back into the lineup and gives us these two performances. One tonight, one the other night against the Brooklyn Nets, both against Brooklyn. Maybe the Celtics saw the Brooklyn Nets roster these last two games and just went, look, this is the team to bring him back against. Because imagine if he would have came back against the Lakers. Imagine if he would have came back against the Oklahoma City Thunder. Right. Those are two really tough matchups for the Boston Celtics. But the Jazz, the Nets, the Heat, specifically the Nets, these two games for Kristaps Porzingis, you could not have mapped out a more perfect 2 games for Kristaps to come back for. I mean, the Nets, they don't have the big guys to go up against Kristaps. And secondly, you have the areas, right? You Brooklyn, Boston, they're not too far apart from one another. And you also have the rest of 2 days in between the 2 games, kind of gauging Kristaps Porzingis' conditioning coming back, right? But just his performance in general, he was super efficient in both these games. I mean, I want to say he shot 18 of 29 in these 2 games. So he's only missed 11 shots in 2 games for Kristaps Porzingis, which 11 shots in 2 games puts up 25 points tonight, 24 the other night, double-digit rebounds. really putting up those stock numbers as well. And this is the biggest thing that stands out. It does not look like he missed a beat. We've been talking about it, how, oh, you need to recondition after being out 2 weeks, after being out 8 straight games, missing 9 of the last 10. There's going to be a ramp up period, a reconditioning period. Well, maybe that ramp up and reconditioning period already happened behind the scenes, because back out on the court now, Porzingis, it doesn't look like he missed any time. Doesn't look like he missed any time.
So this is where I asked my question, and this is where I kind of got into my conspiracy when we were having this whole thing. Does that make you wonder if he kind of said that because he was upset? Maybe he was ready to come back and he felt ready, and the Boston, like, kind of, they didn't want to launch it. They didn't want to attract attention to the Boston Celtics. So he was maybe frustrated that he couldn't go out and play because he said he was going to play against the Lakers. Does that kind of make my, like, conspiracy worth note, do you think then? Could it be a possibility?
See, the only thing that stands in the way of the conspiracies at this point is the length of time that he was actually out.
Yes.
Which that I could say that could be part of the conspiracy for some people. They think, okay, well, the length of time, because really, I think historians, like, we live through the moment, right? And we can kind of, debate or speculate on it a little bit. But I think historians are going to be like, Kristaps Porzingis, and say we do win the title, and people are going back and looking at the game log, right? Kristaps Porzingis, 8 straight games, missed 9 of 10 for an illness. An illness? I think we're going to look back at that in time and go, he missed 8 games because of an illness. He was either actually, as he said, which he's either lying to the public or not.
Yep.
Kristaps Porzingis said he was the most ill he's ever felt in his entire life. That's what he said. That's what he said. So they said it on the broadcast. That's what Kristaps Porzingis said. That's possible. You can miss 8 games because of that. I would say if you get a real bad illness, oh yeah, you could miss 8 games. You could be out 2-3 weeks, 100%.
And it could
We've
be
all
like,
been through that.
it could, like I mentioned too, like, it's happened to me because sicknesses are going around crazy. He could have been sick and then got another sickness. Like, he could have kept getting sicknesses and, like, bad sicknesses, it could have been rough. Like, and that, like I said, when I was feeling like that, I didn't feel 100% for about a month or longer, and then I felt better for about a week. And then, which may have happened with him, maybe he felt better and was going back to conditioning, and they're like, all right, we'll just put down illness because you still need to recondition. And then maybe he got attacked with another illness, because his immune system wasn't completely built up yet. I'm no doctor, but that could be a possibility for sure.
But that's where I'm saying with this, it could be it could be a situation where he was ill and he got better last week, said he wanted to play in the Laker game. They went, okay, no, don't come back for the Laker game. Don't come back for the Jazz game either, because when you inevitably, we don't want you to play the Thunder. We don't want you to play the Oklahoma City Thunder. Plus, if you come back for the Jazz game and miss the Thunder game, people are going to be like, what is this? What's going on here? Is something really... The more questions are raised if he were to come back for that Jazz game and miss the Thunder game. But I think what we saw is he got better last week, probably sometime during the Portland-Philadelphia game a week and a half ago. And then the team went, okay, we're going to start to ramp you up. We're going to start to condition you a little bit more. And then we're going to target your... They probably had these 2 games picked out. The Nets. Oh, we play the Nets back to back. Same look, 2 different nights. You have 2 days of rest in between. 1 game in Brooklyn on the road, 1 game at home. Kind of get your feet wet under you both places. And I think that's definitely the biggest possibility is Kristaps Porzingis was really sick. Last week he was all right. Tweeted that out, of course. They were reconditioning, revamping him back into play, and then now he's back out here. But then there's also a conspiratorial side of this all still that won't matter as time moves on, I will say, but we're still going to talk about it because it just happened and we all just lived through it. But Kristaps Porzingis, and history too, looking at it, 8 games missed in a row for an illness. I think people are going to look at that at some point in time and go, he was resting. He was resting. Because in the playoffs every year just change everything. Like, I cannot say enough about how awesome the NBA playoffs are, because the NBA playoffs change everything from narrative, from that perspective, to every single perspective somebody has about a player or a team throughout a season. That'll all come to fruition in the playoffs, whether those speculations and narratives are correct or not. And I think in the playoffs, when the playoffs hit, we're going to go, wow, those 8 games where Kristaps Porzingis missed, or the 9 out of 10, they did not matter whatsoever. They didn't matter whatsoever, and we needed Kristaps healthy for this time right now in the playoffs. And this is speaking when we get to the playoffs eventually. But that time when the playoffs strikes, I believe we're going to look back at this time period for Porzingis and go, were they resting him right there? Because, well, how important were those 8 games in that piece of the schedule versus right now? And right now, it's like, we need Kristaps Porzingis at his full health capacity. We need Kristaps Porzingis at 100%. Well, back then, we didn't really need Kristaps Porzingis at 100%. And actually, from those 8 games, I really hope he wasn't sick, because during those 8 games, he's resting. Those are miles that are not put onto Kristaps Porzingis's body for later on down the line. And it does look like my the realism, the real side of me says, okay, maybe he was just sick. They ramped him back up into play. Now he's here. But then there is a side of me that goes, okay, playoffs are big. They're right around the corner, and when we get to the playoffs, I think the viewpoint that we have now could just shift entirely because of how big we realize the play is during the NBA playoffs. When it gets to that point, we're going to realize the intensity, the energy, everything is going to go up to another level. And when we get there, it's funny because you could every year you could see this year after year. Oh, we go the process, and this is what I don't know. I don't know why this happens to the human race and society in general, but we'll go through cycles of everything. We this is best shown in terms of sports seasons, because it's like, oh, at the beginning of for example, at media day at the beginning of the year, everyone loves their teams. Everyone loves their teams. Some people might have fan bases, depends, whatever. But inside a clubhouse, inside a locker room, everybody loves the team. They have all the optimism in the world. They're going to be competitive. They're going to be surprised. They're going to surprise everybody, everything, right? And then on the season starts, and then you got some teams run ahead, and you have some teams completely falter. But then by the end of the year, some of those teams who have faltered have made their way out of the sand. Of course, this year was the Milwaukee Bucks. Some teams stay right there. Saw this year was the Philadelphia 76ers, the Wizards, the Hornets. They've all fallen down there. The Nets, as we're looking at tonight. The Nets, hey, they started out actually well this season. They were 500. They were in the standings. Then they went the other way.
Yep.
And then we also see just the narratives just completely shift throughout a season. And the playoffs are a point in the year where we always forget matchups matter, experience matters, health matters, stamina matters. All of these things in the regular season that kind of go over the head of some people during the regular season, back and forth. Those things matter during the NBA playoffs that people don't talk about during the year. Some of the stamina, the saving oneself for the playoffs. And a lot of people look at that conversation and go, no, you should be playing the whole year. But say with the Celtics team, we go, maybe we do need to save some of that tank come playoff time, because we're going to have a tougher road than we did last year. We want to be healthy come playoff time. The matchups, the size, the versatility, the ways you can play, it all matters come playoff time. We're going to realize how many things matter come playoff time that right now we don't put as much stock into or I should say, we're putting as much stock into other things right now that really don't hold a candle to some things that will matter come playoff time. And that is something like, for example, the last 3 games. It's like we won all 3 games. We beat the Heat. We beat the Nets twice. Went back and forth with the Nets tonight. But say, trying to give out a full example, like the last game, right? The Nets out rebounded us entirely, just completely out rebounded us. and we will come in here, or even from a 3-point perspective, the Nets shot 43% the other night. We'll come in here and go, oh, is the Celtics, their 3-point defense against the Nets, or they're rebounding against the Nets? Oh my goodness. But then it's like, this doesn't matter. It's like, are you going to be able to match up with the Heat in the first round, or the Hawks in the first round, or the Magic in the first round, and then the second round? You're going to be able to go up against the Knicks. You're going to be able to go up against the Bucks or the Pacers or the Pistons. And then in the conference finals, it's going to be the Cavs or the Bucks or the Pacers, the Pistons, whoever, right? Are the Celtics going to be able to play the full series, play the full minutes they're supposed to play? Like, we're talking about rest. I mean, these guys are going to be ramped up to nearly 40 plus minutes during the playoffs. Are they going to be able to do that, sustain their consistency come playoff time, hit their shots come playoff time, take advantage of the mismatches that come playoff time on both ends of the floor? The Celtics going to be able to do this. And right now, some of the things that we're talking about in regards to injuries, guys being in and out of the lineup, are the Celtics, they do this on a nightly basis. Some of these things won't matter. It'll matter come playoff time when everything comes due. Because once you're down 0-2 in a series, that's when things become real. Oh, you could drop 2 games against the Cavs and the Pistons, and oh, the sky's falling. But really, the sky doesn't fall till you're down 0-2 or down 0-3 even, or just losing a series straight up. That's when reality sets in for an NBA team. And it's all going to come around the corner in the NBA playoffs. And this stretch here, I think we're going to remember as maybe that wasn't as important as the NBA playoffs. Maybe it's those 8 games that Kristaps Porzingis missed. They just weren't important whatsoever. And right now was the most important part of the entire schedule. Could you see that being the reality, Griffin? Could you see later on in time during the playoffs us looking at this 8-game stretch, and where you are more on the conspiratorial side. Let's get this out of the way. You're more on the side of Porzingis maybe was resting during that time.
I mean, yeah, I agree 100%. I feel like it could be potentially. I mean, you're talking about it, and it's gonna be more so like we look, say we win the championship, right? Banner 19, and we look back at it and we go, wait, could this possibly be a case? I feel it's so hard to say, because it's like, was he? Maybe. Was he not? I don't know. It's definitely going to be conspiracy. It's kind of like, why did the Mavericks do that trade with the Lakers? It's still, I think we have ideas why, but we don't exactly know. I think it's kind of in the same sense, but I like what you said. I mean, it could potentially be, I like what you said. I think it could have started off as an illness, and then maybe it, like, matchups wise, you look at it, like you said, Brooklyn, it's kind of close. And then you look at it, we face Brooklyn the next night, not the next night, not back to back, but like, a game later at TD Garden. It's the perfect situation. And then obviously, like you said, they're not big heavy, so it would be a good matchup for Porzingis to get back up on his feet. And then at the same time, too, it's a team that you got to go after and get, and they're an easier team, So I love your thoughts on it. And I think potentially, yeah, that could be one. But I think I will say, I feel like there was an illness or something that started off. I don't want to kind of look at it as a negative thing. All right, they were just giving him time to rest. But I love your thought on it. So honestly, you kind of said it all. But could it happen? Could that be a possibility? Yes. At the same time, maybe not so. Like, maybe he was genuinely sick, and like he's been sick, and then maybe he was like, all right, I'm feeling well enough to play against the Lakers. And then the Lakers game maybe could have came across, and he was like, oh, I still don't feel good, or something like that. So there's so many thoughts, and there's so many, maybe he was ready there. And then, like you said, it's a tough game to come back right against the Lakers. That's a tough game. And then you play the Utah Jazz, and then you have OKC. That's another tough game. So you get one break, and then OKC. I'm kind of copying you again, but OKC, you're like, oh, why is Porzingis out again? Well, we don't want him to play against OKC, so that could totally be one too. But ultimately, I think it's one that we probably will never find out, like, honestly, with the Mavs and the Lakers, we probably will never find that out. It's definitely a conspiracy to have, but I think ultimately it's just good that he's back now, and he looked like Porzingis out there tonight. I feel like he did look a little gassed, a little bit, not completely, but obviously with him being on, I think he was on a minute restriction last time, like last Nets game. I'm pretty
I'm
sure
not
he said
not
something.
sure about that one.
Oh, there no.
Let's
I
see.
thought I heard something about that. So yeah, because I thought I heard some. I don't know why. I guess conditioning wise, maybe for a minute restriction. I thought I heard something along the lines of that. I could totally be wrong, but that could totally be just like a mental minute restriction too, just because they don't want first game back. They don't want him like dying out there, you know?
So there was a report that he would probably be on a minutes
Okay.
restriction. But I'll say this. I'll say this though. I'm not certain that he actually was the other night
Okay.
because if I'm not mistaken, right, the Celtics. So that game against the Nets, pulling it up here, which of course we have 2 games with the Nets, so it's a little confusing when
Well, confusing
when you're
for
looking up Celtics Nets and you're like, wait a minute, this is tonight. Wait, hold up. Okay, so the other game, Kristaps Porzingis, just pulling this one out of the archives here from the other night. But Kristaps Porzingis, I believe, played the whole fourth quarter in that game. He played 32 minutes that
okay,
night.
so no minute restriction. I
So
heard something
so
like
let me
broadcast.
let
Okay.
me let me get this straight. Um, we're on ESPN right now, but we got to go to NBA.com because shout out to NBA.com folks because NBA.com has the quarterly scoring. We'll say that right now.
Yeah,
Uh,
I'm a fan. I wasn't a fan of it at first, but I like it now. I mess with it. I mess with it.
no, I like the quarterly scores because I mean, it
It
really,
shows more of the game.
yeah, I
It kind
mean,
of shows
there's
like
there's more information. There's nothing to me that okay. So Kristaps Porzingis in the fourth quarter the other night, 14 points, 4 of 6 from the field,
wow.
12 minutes. Okay, so it took me like 5 minutes to find that, but 12 minutes. Him and to this is where it's like on this program we have questioned Joe Mazzulla a couple times. Just saying, we I
Yeah.
mean
Yeah.
fair,
Yeah.
but this is again where you kind of like Joe Mazzulla, what's going on here? So Porzingis might have a minutes restriction. I don't think he did because he played
Yeah.
32 minutes is not like what you restricting him for 35 minutes. That just makes no
Yeah,
sense.
like what?
The-
Because I think
thir-
that's
32 minutes
is.
played the entirety of the fourth quarter. And I would say they actually needed him to
Mhm.
close out that game in the fourth quarter. Because remember, he
Yeah.
started off that fourth quarter well, and it felt like they were going to try to make this is kind of where I wonder, Joe Mazzulla, what's going on here? It looks like they tried to make a little bit of a push to win that game the other night with Kristaps Porzingis out on the floor to begin the fourth quarter, and that they were going to try to pull him as the game maybe got out of hand in the fourth quarter.
Yeah.
But the game never got out of hand. He ended up playing well. He ended up being a person that, or a player rather, the Celtics needed out there on the floor to go out and win that game against the Nets the other night. And then, of course, he plays the full fourth quarter alongside Drew Holiday. Drew Holiday and Kristaps Porzingis playing a full fourth quarter against the Brooklyn Nets at this point in the year. That's just stupid. I'm sorry. That's just. I understand it was to win the game the other night because both of them had tremendous performances. Those were the two players against the Nets the other night who could have won player spotlight. Kristaps
Yeah.
Porzingis gave it to him in his return just because he returned to the floor. But if it wasn't Kristaps's return, you're likely looking at Drew Holiday with the double double with those assists. But both those players in against the Nets, they were your 2 best players for the Boston Celtics the other night, and they both played 12 minutes in the fourth quarter. At this point in the season, I understand the competitiveness that resides in Joe Mazzulla and the Celtics in these games, but at the same time, I go, that's a couple man, too many minutes in the
Yeah.
fourth quarter there a little bit. But I mean, that was the other night.
Yeah.
So when you talk about a minutes restriction, I'm pretty sure he wasn't on a minutes restriction because we could actually say something else about the minutes that Drew Holiday and Kristaps Porzingis. Well, switching Kristaps Porzingis and Drew Holiday played the other night. But really, Kristaps Porzingis, since his return, you could not have a better return, regardless of the minutes. Yeah, you might don't like the minutes, don't like him playing the full fourth. The return has been basically perfect for Kristaps Porzingis. I mean, we've talked about, perfect is a subjective term, but this is perfectly subjective, or subjectively perfect of a return for Kristaps Porzingis with I like what a 18 of he comes back for 18 of 29 from the floor. I mean, that's like you're shooting outside in the driveway by yourself. I mean, you only miss 11 shots out of 29 in an NBA game or two NBA games. That's fairly impressive for Kristaps Porzingis against the Brooklyn Nets. But I do want to talk about the Brooklyn Nets before we sign off here, because we're not going to see the Brooklyn Nets for the rest of the season, and they're a part of the slew of tanking teams the Celtics will see at the end of the year. But from my perspective, I've been watching the Brooklyn Nets all season long pretty carefully, because they're an interesting team to me. They're an enigma out there. The Brooklyn Nets at the beginning of this year, already mentioned on this program, they started the season out well. I mean, if we remember back to November, the Brooklyn Nets took the Boston Celtics to overtime at the TD Garden, and it really looked like the Celtics. They almost didn't pull out that game, the Celtics, earlier this season against the Brooklyn Nets. But since that point, the Brooklyn Nets have completely fallen off a cliff because they've committed to the tank. I mean, at the beginning of this season, the Nets were almost in a playoff spot. They were in the play-in spot. They were hovering around 500. Yet they went, oh, no, no, no. Brooklyn's front office and ownership went, no, no, no. We cannot be doing any of this winning stuff here this season. And that's when we saw Dorian Finney-Smith shipped off to the Los Angeles Lakers. Dennis Schroeder shipped off to the Golden State Warriors, and then eventually shipped off to the Miami Heat and then the Detroit Pistons. After that, Shake Milton shipped off to the Los Angeles Lakers. Ben Simmons bought out entirely. Outside of that, those were all your trade assets. If you are the Brooklyn Nets, outside of that, you kind of want to keep everybody else. But that kind of brings me to my question of, should Brooklyn have actually sold earlier this season and committed to the tank, or should Brooklyn have kind of stayed the course a little bit with their team? I know they wouldn't have been going anywhere, but Dennis Schroeder, you have Dorian Finney-Smith, you had Ben Simmons in there. Shake Milton didn't play a huge role, but some of those guys were sold off for the Nets. They didn't, of course, sell Cam Johnson, Bojan Bogdanovic, and Cam Thomas, which are guys you're looking at. Bojan Bogdanovic, he's hurt, which let me confirm here that Bojan Bogdanovic was not actually traded here. Let's see. So he's still on the Brooklyn Nets. Just saying, he was injured.
Has he even played this season?
No, he's out. He's out of the lineup with a foot injury. Yes. See, here's the thing. Sometimes you don't look at things since November and you're like, wait, what is the status on this? So Bojan Bogdanovic still in the Nets. He's more of just a salary filler for the Brooklyn Nets. Last year, he's with the Knicks. He was with the Pistons. Obviously, he was somebody the Knicks coveted last year. Didn't make the playoff run with him. Was injured before that. Took this whole season, Bojan Bogdanovic did, to return from that foot injury. Still hasn't yet. Might be a foot or a wrist. And regardless, it's an injury. Sorry, I don't have all the Brooklyn Nets information out here asking this question, but the Bogdanovic trade never happened for the Brooklyn Nets. The Cam Thomas trade never happened for the Brooklyn Nets. Cam Johnson, Nick Claxton still on the roster, so they still have Nick Claxton, Cam Johnson, Cam Thomas. Cam Thomas is a restricted free agent going into next season. Those are three guys you can kind of pinpoint as your young core. It's not the most audacious young core, but it's a core. It's a core of young players under contract. Cam Thomas, hopefully this offseason, will be under contract for the Nets. Maybe at too big of a number. I don't know, for me to tell. But regardless, those are your core. Those guys are your core if you're the Nets. Cam Johnson, Cam Thomas, and who was I just? Cam Thomas, Cam Johnson, and Nick Claxton. There we go. And those are your guys.
Maybe D'Angelo Russell could be on bringing him back, but he's not young He's
Nah.
on before.
No.
He's kind of mid. I'm not gonna lie, he's kind of mid.
But just looking at their entire roster, right? So earlier this season, they sold Schroeder. They sold Finney Smith. They got rid of Ben Simmons. They got rid of Shake Milton. Now, next year, you go into the year with a core of Claxton, Johnson, maybe Cam Thomas if they re-sign him this offseason. I'm speculating he'll be back with the Nets because their cap space. But you're looking at free agents right now. D'Angelo Russell will be a free agent. Now, DeAnthony Melton, he's never played for the Nets, torn ACL. He's probably going to go wherever. He's probably not going to re-sign with the Nets. But he's a free agent on the roster. Zaire Williams will be a free agent after his rookie deal. Day'Ron Sharp will be a free agent after his rookie deal. Trenton Watford will be a free agent as well. Some of these guys, Zaire Williams, Cam Thomas, Day'Ron Sharp, they will be restricted free agents. Trenton Watford will not be. He will be a unrestricted free agent. Keon Johnson, unguaranteed. Maxwell Lewis, unguaranteed next year. Jalen Wilson under contract. Noah Clowney and Derek Whitehead, some of the younger guys. But just looking at the Nets, very young roster.
Yeah.
Just period. And a roster that is highly inexperienced out there on the floor. If you just look at all of their players, their total NBA games, total minutes played, very inexperienced club. Just rotationally, these guys fitting into a consistent rotation in the NBA. Do you believe the Nets should have actually committed to the tank this season? Or should they have actually come out and try to win some ball games and build around the core they had at the beginning of the year that we saw was actually fun, actually frisky, actually could have made a run this year, but they didn't because the front office went on a fire sale. And now we see the Nets tonight at the end of the season. They had a lead for most of tonight, and we still didn't really think that the Celtics without Brown and Tatum, we didn't think the Celtics were really going to succumb to the Brooklyn Nets. So should the Nets have tanked this season, or should they have stayed the course with the core they already had in place, if you even want to call it a core?
Yeah. I think this. I think they were fun. They were a fun team to watch for sure. I always hated the Brooklyn Nets because they built up this fake super team that didn't work out with Kyrie Irving, Kevin Durant, James Harden, you name it. They built up this fake super team, which I hated that because, and that honestly,
Because they won games. That's
yeah,
why.
I agree, but I also hated it because I didn't like how Durant was like, all right, I'm gonna go here and build my own super team and get Kyrie, James Harden, but whatever. I'm fine with the Nets now, and I hope they build up a young team. But I think you got rid of some of your key assets. I mean, you had Dennis Schroeder who said the NBA trade deadline was modern day slavery. And you saw him get shipped off.
Dennis Schroeder making 13 mil a year. 13 mil.
Yeah.
13 mil.
I mean,
go ahead.
Yeah, I mean,
mil.
I would be happy if I was making 13 mil no matter where I am. Just saying. 13 mil is 13 mil a year. I'm just saying.
A lot of money.
Yeah, so just gotta put on that. Shout out to Schroeder though. I'm a big fan of him. He has a Celtics tattoo.
I believe, isn't it on his leg?
Yeah, it is. Yep.
Yes.
Love it. Shout out to Schroeder. I he was fun for Boston, former Celtic. But anyways, they got rid of a lot of key assets. And you could have, I think, even making a play-in spot potentially with this Brooklyn Nets team, because they were on a roll, like you said, bringing Boston into overtime like that. I mean, when you face the defending champs, you have nothing to lose, so they're gonna go all for it. You've seen it the last 2 games, and then, last game they were like, all right, they kind of were like, all right, if we could win it, let's win it. But tonight, you saw them dominating the game, and then they probably, I'm gonna say this, their coach probably had something under them because you have to admit they were on fire all game, and then they're probably like, all right, remember the tank, we have to make it look believable, and then that could be conspiracy again. Not big on conspiracies, but whatever. But ultimately,
they're fun to talk about. Just
they
saying.
are.
Conspiracies are fun to talk about. It's just they're not like they can sometimes get outlandish, and then
they get
your
crazy.
credibility is taken away, and then it's just like, I'm just talking about a conspiracy. I'm not talking about the real
Yeah.
thing, but this could be the real thing.
It could. It could. No, but I think ultimately, I feel like it's kind of a bust. To answer your question, I think it's kind of unnecessary. It could be. I think if they get number one and you get the golden prize, which is Cooper Flag, it's a successful tanking season, and you're like, all right, I'm fine shipping off whoever we had to bring in Cooper Flag, but and then there's also some other good names in that. Dylan Harper, Ace Bailey, right? Isn't that his name?
Yep.
Yeah, I know it. There's some good key assets that you could get from this draft. So I don't think it's a complete loss. I think you definitely need to sign Cam Thomas because I think he's a young asset to this team and he's very valuable for the Brooklyn Nets. But ultimately, if you get that golden ticket, you get Cooper Flag, you're like, all right, it was completely worth it. If you get Dylan Harper or Ace Bailey, you're like, I'll take this. This is fine. Like this isn't the golden prize, but this is still like second place runner up. This is good. Like I'll take that too. But ultimately I feel like if you get in that lottery, if you get one of those three, I feel like it's a happy day if you're the Brooklyn Nets. If they get anyone else, I'm going to say, all right, that was a waste of trading. Like you could have kept those assets that you had, maybe even make a play-in spot and show, all right, look, we have a young team. Let's build up instead of trying to tank and get picks. We don't have a lot of salary cap. Let's move on from Bogdanovich and maybe pick up a good free agent to help us, give us some veteran leadership on this team. So I think if you ultimately seeing them getting one of those three players, obviously they want the golden prize, they want Cooper Flag. But if you see them getting any of those three players, it's a happy day if you're a Nets fan, and I think it was worth making those trades. You could, like I said, question Ace Bailey and Dylan Harper, but at the same time, if you don't get any of them, it was like, if you're a Nets fan or you in the Nets organization, why we tank? Like, what was the purpose of tanking if we couldn't get this golden prize? That's my thoughts on it.
Yeah, I'm in agreement with you right there where if the Nets don't get a top name, this season will kind of be like, yeah, why do we go
Sucks.
so far into the garbage can just to get nothing? I mean that is what I kind of see there. But I will say this, the bright side of that for the Brooklyn Nets is the roadmap for this team to become better again, Brooklyn. It's multiple tanking years.
Yeah.
So you could say on one hand, well, they started it up. I don't want to say early, but they started the tank a year ahead of
You're
where
right.
they could be starting the tank. Say they do go this season and they achieve the number 8 seed. Well, what does that exactly do for them? Especially if, say, Schroeder does leave in the offseason or Finney Smith does leave in the offseason. You don't get anything for some of these players you just traded away for the Brooklyn Nets. That's also possible. That is
Yeah.
also possible. That is the main reason too as to why they needed to trade some of these guys away. And Ben Simmons was more the let's get the like he is a winning factor, contract contractually, one of our biggest contracts. Obviously, they're still eating a lot of his money, but he's a guy who other teams also didn't want to trade for him at his number. But they would sign him to a minimum, as we saw the Los Angeles Clippers did. Uh, Yet the Nets, they got him out of there because he was positively impacting their team on a nightly basis and
Yeah.
helping them win games. But all these players, outside of helping the Nets win games, the Nets needed to trade away some of these guys in order to actually get the future value out of them
Mhm.
when they inevitably could have walked away from the Nets during the summer. So that's the main point as to why the Nets made some of those trades.
Oh,
And just an update for everybody out there. Meow is back in my room right now. I don't know if you guys heard that or not.
wait,
He's back in here.
really quick. Next win that Franco's on here, we need to see the cat thing.
No,
The
I'll
cat.
be walking out of the room when that happens. I'll be walking
Is
out.
it that
You see me
terrifying?
walk right out of the room.
All right. Give me the details then, because I need to know now. Like what?
I'm right now. Meow is trying to walk out of the room via the window in the room, even though the window is shut, so she ain't gonna be able to do that. But yeah, I'll be doing the same thing, walking out of the room. It's like it comes from Party City. It's a terrible mask. I don't know how else to just it's hellacious. It's scary. You're gonna have to see yourself when he comes on
No,
here. I'll be walking. I'll be out. I'll just be like, teachers, like, if you guys need to walk out in the hallway right now, go ahead and do it. It's like I'll be doing
can't
that.
wait. I
that
think
night.
I'm considering texting Franco right after we get off of this because now I have.
Oh no, go ahead and do it. He'll be.
It'll
He
be
could come on right now. I'm not even. He might pop on the screen. Who even know? I don't know. He might be. I don't know. He was up in the air for post game. He could pop on.
Wait, all right, text him. Give him a text really quick and see if he could pop on and show us the cat mask. If not,
Well, let's see. Let's see.
Because it's a Celtics win. I'm trying to see the cat mask. I'm
All
trying to see the Franco. Come on, Franco. Come in clutch right now. It's always the late night ones because I was watching one of your guys' post game shows and you guys were talking about how coaches should bring back the suits.
She's here. Wait, meow.
Oh, wait. Oh,
nope. And she's skirt behind the table.
oh, come on.
Literally, well, it's not even table. Huge dresser, just right behind, like little gelatin creature, just. Whoop. But talking about the Brooklyn Nets, I'll conclude this point real quick. I'll conclude this point. See, I texted Franco. We'll see if he gets back to me. Or I'll text Franco. We'll see if he gets back to me. Oh, meow. What's up? What's up?
Do we get a cat?
I'm trying to get her up here. I don't know if I can. 2 hours into the stream, it's like, yep, this cat time. But the Nets. I'm gonna conclude this point on the Nets.
Yeah.
They would have needed to trade. They would have needed to trade these guys to get future contractual value. They start up the tanking early because it's quite possible they win this season. They go and make the play-in tournament. They get knocked out in the first round. They have a fun season, but some of these guys leave in the offseason. Then all of a sudden they're left with nothing. And they're in a position where they need to tank next year. They're really bad next year already. And they go, well, why didn't we tank last season to start that process? And we could have had somebody like Dylan Harper, Ace Baylor, even had a chance. Even a chance. I mean, they're giving themselves a chance for Cooper Flag right now. At least they're giving themselves a chance for Cooper Flag. They might not get Cooper Flag, but they're giving themselves a shot at Cooper Flag, which is important. If you make the playoffs, you're not going to have a shot at Cooper Flag. That's just bottom line if you're the Nets or any other team in the NBA. But the Nets, they right now, they're tanking. And I will say, multiple years of tanking in front of the Nets says to me that there's less pressure on this draft pick ahead. Now, there's still going to be pressure for a top 5 or a top 10 pick every single time. I mean, top 5, top 10 the owner of the team is going to want to see the front office and themselves. I mean, the owner is very much involved, don't get me wrong, but they're going to want to see a surefire, even all like most if you're talking top 5, top 10, you're talking usually all-star level player. You want an all-star level player. Sometimes it can fall below that, just below that. You can still get a very good player. I mean, think about Marcus Smart with the Celtics, picked 6th overall, never an all-star player, but was a defensive player of the year. I mean, so really the MVP of the year on one side of the floor defensively for Marcus Smart. So you can still get generational players like that who are on your team for a decade. Another guy like that, I think, is Jalen Suggs. We'll see. I think he has all-star potential, but he's kind of a player that does all the little nitty-gritty things and doesn't come out as an all-star player necessarily. He's getting to that level. We'll see. But he is kind of that player where it's like, whoa, the Magic have somebody who will probably be in Orlando for a decade with their top 5 pick. So owners and GMs, front office, they expect that. But at the same time, I would say the Nets pick, there's not as big of a pressure to pick somebody who's going to weave the whole thing together because the whole thing is discombobulated and apart right now. I mean, I think in a couple of years, they could have a really nice team, the Brooklyn Nets, because if you think about this, you have Nick Claxton, who's on contract for upcoming years, and his contract descends too.
Too.
Yeah, go ahead.
That's a player I've always wanted Boston to get, Nick Claxton. I'm saying it. I'm gonna leave it there. I'm gonna just leave it there.
He was playing in the so I went to the SEC tournament a couple of years ago when it was in St. Louis. Now it's usually they have it in Nashville, they have it in a bunch of other places, but it was in St. Louis one year, the SEC tournament, and I remember going to a Georgia, I believe it was Georgia Vanderbilt game, and I was wondering, any of these players going to be NBA players? It was one of the first round games where it was, it was like the 12th and the 13th seed playing each other. We just went through this week for March Madness, where it was all the conference tournaments going towards the real tournament. And you know those early week games, the games that are on Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, the games that are like, oh, we have the 10 and the 11 seed playing just to get into the tournament, like the play-in of the conference tournaments, basically. Georgia and Vanderbilt were playing on one of those slots, those time slots, and I remember thinking, is anybody going to be an NBA player out of all these players on court? And I was like, oh, Nicholas Claxton. I'm like, oh, he's not a bad player out there with Georgia, and went second round, early second round. But the Nets obviously play with KD, Kyrie, Harden was their center on that team, as they kind of needed to gut the rest of the roster to get those guys. But Nicholas Claxton, now I'm a huge fan of Nicholas Claxton, because I'll always remember him being that player that I'm going, is there going to be any NBA players here in this gym tonight? And then all of a sudden, Nicholas Claxton turns into who he is. But I'll say he is a part of the future for the Brooklyn Nets, because he's under contract for multiple years, still a very young player, and his contract descends. I mean, that descending contract is so important if you're looking at any team out there trying to build a championship roster. Descending deals, I mean, come on, that saves you money year after year. You're thinking, oh, this guy makes $27 million this year. The next year he makes 25. That's $2 million towards the salary cap, that or the luxury tax line, whatever you're trying to get under or get over, whatever you're trying to do. If you're a team, usually get under most of the time, save money. That is saved money for a team. That extra $2 million of a contract to send. Nicholas Claxton's contract does that. Cam Johnson's contract might do that. Might need to get some information on that real quick. But Cam Johnson is also a part of the future. But Cam Johnson is not an all-star player. Looking at it, I think he's a very good complementary player. His contract descends too. So look, Nick Claxton, he makes 27.5 this year. Next year, Nick Claxton will make 25.3. The year after that, he's making 23.1. And then after that, he's making 20.9.
Wow.
4 seasons from now. So it goes down $7 million. See, that to me, I'm like, I don't like that deal for Nick Claxton, because the money is actually... Because $20 million in 4 years is going to be worth less than $20 million is right now. It's just
that's weird. That's weird.
You're going backwards. I mean, you're literally doing this with the chart, right? It's like okay, here's inflation, but here's my salary. It's like your salary's going down while inflation's going up.
Yeah, because up and just
it's like you're making the like this thing on the graph. It's like salary, inflation, like Nicholas Claxton and Cam Johnson. Like, come on, whoever their agents were, I don't know. They got paid, but whatever. $22 million for Cam Johnson this year, 22.5 to be exact, 20.5 next year, and then it goes back up to 22.5. So it goes down and then back up. So down and then back up. But yeah, those are weird deals you don't see too often, but the Nets have both of those in their arsenal right now. And those are two really good players to build off of with those contracts. I will say that right now. Those contracts, descending, good quality players at two positions, you really want them. Your wing position, a guy who can really fill it up from beyond the arc. Defensively, Cam Johnson is a little iffy, but beyond the arc, he can really get it done within any offense. You have Nick Claxton, who can get it done on both ends of the floor, particularly defensively. He's a great young big man still in this league. You have two guys there you can really build off of. You're the Brooklyn Nets. The one player I'd be a little weary of right now, Cam Thomas, as talented as we know he is, small guards in this league tend to get picked apart come playoff time. And if they do give Cam Thomas $40 million a year upcoming, because he was most of the year he was up there with some of the best scorers in the league, that's gonna definitely go far when he's in contract negotiations with other teams. But Cam Thomas, within that sphere, I worry about the Nets overpaying him just a little bit. But if they do bring back Cam Thomas, they bring back Day'Ron Sharpe as well. We saw Day'Ron Sharpe hit a 3-pointer tonight. Just a little weird of an occasion. Day'Ron Sharpe 3-point shot. I never thought I'd see it. But Zaire Williams too, young player from Memphis. I never understood why Memphis really gave up on him the way he did on the last year of his deal. I didn't like that. I understand they maybe weren't going to pay him, but this season, you could have gotten something more out of him. Developmental wise, I don't understand why Memphis just gave up on Zaire Williams the way they did. But that's another young player you could re-sign if you're the Brooklyn Nets. All of a sudden, you have Zaire Williams, former top 10 pick, I will say too, not that long ago as well. So there's still a lot of potential in Zaire Williams. I like Zaire Williams as a player. I know other people don't, but I do. Zaire Williams, You have Day'Ron Sharp, you have Cam Thomas, you have Nicholas Claxton, you have also Cam Johnson. So those 5 players right there, those are your 5 young guys. But now you have a potential top 5, top 10 pick this season. You add that on to the pile of players. Now next season, say the Nets are bad again, another top 10 pick added onto these young players who are all going to be under contract. Then all of a sudden, those players, they start developing, start making their way into their prime. And now for the Brooklyn Nets, they have, say by 2027, let's see, 2025, or say 2025, 26 is next year, 26, 27 the next year after that. By 27, 28, going into that season, the Nets, it's like you could have 2 top 10 picks from the last 2 years. You could still have Cam Thomas. You could still have Cam Johnson. You could still have Nicholas Claxton, Day'Ron Sharp as well. And who's the other guy I just mentioned in there? Totally forgot. Zaire Williams as well. Trendon Watford, hey, we'll throw him in there as well.
Yeah.
You could have those guys all under deals. And that's a nice little rotation right there. You go, okay. Top 10 pick with Cam Thomas, Johnson, Nicholas Claxton. I'll point out with these players too. They're good complementary players. I'm a little weary of Cam Thomas and what he could mean for the Nets' future because I really think he could get overpaid. He is somebody that doesn't share the ball well. He's not somebody that really fits into particular systems. He's somebody who gets hounded on, or I should say, picked apart defensively. That's a player that I look and go, oh, got to be careful with him.
Yeah.
But everybody else are guys you can easily fit around other players, complementary players. I see Zaire Williams as a complementary player. I see Cam Johnson as a complementary player. I see Nicholas Claxton, Day'Ron Sharp. Those are guys who can fit and mold around other potential star players or other players around the league, play a nice role for themselves, and also enhance players around them and then just their entire team. And that's where I look at the Nets right now and go, okay, they're a mess. Clearly, the last 2 games we played, they're a mess. They tanked this season. They sold everybody off.
Yeah.
But by 2027, which is 2027, 28, that's probably the year we want to start seeing the Nets uptick a little bit. The next 2 seasons could be a little rough. But by 27, 28, somewhere around that time, maybe the Nets with 3 top 10 picks on the roster. I say by 2027, they would have 3 top 10 picks on the roster because it'd be this year, next year, year after that. So the next 2 seasons, say they're still tanking or still in the bottom of the East. After that, you have 3 top 10 picks, maybe all these players on your roster. That's when the Nets could be competitive out there on the floor. So, these things are interesting. I will say to talk about. I obviously we're a Celtics broadcast, but the Nets are in the Celtics division. We're gonna have to play the Nets. Not this season, but moving forward, we're gonna see them a lot more. And the Celtics and Nets have had a history. So, but looking ahead on the Celtics schedule, a West Coast road trip meets the Boston Celtics coming up within the next week. And the Celtics, they're not returning home. Tonight, the Boston Celtics were at home, but they're not returning home for the next 6 games. The Celtics, it's just the variance out there. The Celtics just saw 7 straight home games, now 6 straight road games, and they will all be on the West Coast, every single one of them. The Celtics start on Friday at the Utah Jazz, then they go on Sunday. They travel up to Portland, not Portland, Maine, but Portland, Oregon, out west. I don't know which west and east right here. But they'll play the Blazers on Monday. That'll be the second night of a back-to-back. That'll be at Sacramento. Then Wednesday, I will say the second night of a back-to-back is nice, though, because the Celtics, they have a game at 6 and then a game at 10. So that second night of a back-to-back, it's not quite 24 hours. It'll be 28 hours until the next game. But Wednesday, they take on the Phoenix Suns at Phoenix. Next Saturday, they will be at San Antonio. The Celtics will be no Wemby in that game, of course.
Crazy.
But Monday, last game of the month coming up in 6 games already for the month of March, will be at Memphis against the Grizzlies. So the Jazz, the Blazers, the Kings, the Suns, the Spurs, and the Grizzlies await the Boston Celtics on their schedule. Griffin, for you, what do you need to see out of the Boston Celtics in the next week in order to really see the confidence within us and the fan base uptick even more within the Celtics team, even though within the last 3 games, I'd say the confidence is it's fairly leveled right now. It's
all right.
leveled. It hasn't gone up crazily. It hasn't gone down crazily. It's leveled from where we were 17-4, 18-4 now in the last 22 games. But what do the Celtics need to do in the next week in order to achieve a successful road trip out west?
I'm just gonna say it straight up, assert dominance. I mean, not focus on moving away from your bad habits, like building those leads and destroying them. Work on more so keeping your foot on the gas pedal and mainly making those road trip fans happy. I mean, so many people like the thing is, I think this is a good reason why the Boston Celtics are so good on the road is because you have a great like fan base that travels well and they come in to your games and they show up. So I think ultimately it's just necessarily of building good habits, seeing better things that could help us in playoffs rather than half-assing it or kind of still getting those big leads and just falling completely. I think it's just building good habits and maintaining good basketball. I mean, you see the Boston Celtics, they play great on the road. They do. It's undeniable that they play great on the road. And you see those are some kind of weaker games. Obviously there's a little sprinkle of a little talent in there, but honestly they're more so weaker games. So it's games that you need to get up and go after. Like I expect to see a lot of players resting, but I also expect to see a lot of great things from the bench people. I expect to see Torrey Craig stepping up. I expect to see Sam Hauser stepping up. I expect to see Baylor Shireman step up. Walsh getting some good minutes. Kada, I expect to see these players that are on the bench kind of get more of a role and just show them that they are ready to be put in at any situation that Joe Mazzulla needs them come playoff time. So I just ultimately, to sum it up, I just want to see good habits and get away from the bad habits and just the Boston Celtics are going to rest players, it, and that they're going to play half-assed because they can. Like you said, they're pretty much locked up for a 3 seed pretty much. And ultimately, you're at the 50 win point. I expect us to keep rolling and get to the 60 win point. But is it going to be impressive? I don't think so. But let's start building good habits and making this a playoff ready team. That's my final thought on it.
Yeah, this West Coast road trip coming up. These West Coast road trips at the end of the year, the tests of the West Coast road trip, this is where I go on one hand, if we come out with a great West Coast road trip, go undefeated, come out, dominate in not every game, but a majority of the games, we'll come out and say, look at this Boston Celtics club. Look at this team getting ready for the playoffs. They are a team that nobody wants to see right now. Obviously, they were the favorites coming into this year, kind of dropped off a little bit, but this is a team nobody wants to see right now. They just went out to the West Coast and completely dominated. We'll say that if the Celtics come out undefeated, they lose one game and they actually dominate a majority, like I said. But on the other hand, if the Celtics come out and put up a lackluster West Coast road trip, I think there will be some concerns that fly around, but I think some of us will also, I don't want to say make excuses, but we'll say, West Coast road trip, end of the year, we're on the road. We know we're going to be the second seed. Guys are resting. We're trying to just maintain a certain balance of health come playoff time. We're trying to maintain a certain level of intensity in play, although these games, we haven't been bringing it. These last couple games, we haven't been bringing it. If on the West Coast, the Celtics don't bring it, we're going to be sitting here saying, are there concerns or is this
we're just rolling
is this team just not performing on the road right now? Are they just kind of rolling over, kind of just walking right into the playoffs? I want to see during this West Coast road trip that first scenario play out, because more times than not, and this is what, again, is so hard about the Celtics team, is the recalibrated version says this Celtics team shouldn't play well on this road trip. However, coming up, I want to see the Celtics play well, because if they do, that solidifies the confidence within us for the Celtics going into the playoffs as a potential team who could go back to back. Right now, the Celtics, they've been going back and forth, and yes, they've been winning games. That is the silver lining here. That's the bottom line, really. But it hasn't been really in dominant fashion, and they've kind of gone back and reverted into their old habits of go out and take a lead, and now we allow teams to come back. Tonight was different, of course, for the Boston Celtics against the Brooklyn Nets, but moving ahead, gonna have some games against teams that are again tanking, but you have to come out and handle those games. And if the Celtics they're handling those games, there's no doubt in my mind this team could go back to back. They're coming out and fumbling these games, fumbling the detail all over the place throughout the night, playing lackadaisical, rolling over, and not winning games. That's when I could see us maybe mounting some concerns. So, and even amidst those concerns, with the I'll say excuses that we can make, I don't want to have to bring out the concern book around this Boston
No.
Celtics club again. I want to see good basketball, and in between, if we lose some games, those are the games I want to come in here and say, well, we just dropped this one, like against the Pistons a
Yeah.
couple weeks ago, where we were going, we just dropped that one. We didn't play well tonight, but look, we had just won 6 straight. We had won, we had lost literally 2 or 3 games in the last month and a half since that point, or before that point. But this West Coast road trip coming up, I still think, although the games don't look that important for the Celtics coming up, I still think they're important to gauge the team on how they're going to go into the playoffs and how they're going to end the season. It's still up in the air if this team can go into the season, or sorry, go into the real season, the playoffs, hot or not. And I just don't want to see. I don't want to see during this West Coast road trip us going back to questioning this Boston Celtics club again. But regardless, we will have you guys covered here on the Celtics Talk Weekly postgame show for all of those Western Conference games, whether they are late at night or during the day. Some of them are coming at some weird times. That'll also be an excuse we might use on the broadcast for the Boston Celtics. The time of day it's coming out, later game, early game, who knows?
Yeah.
But regardless, we will have you guys covered for every single game coming up on the post game show. But tonight, that is going to wrap it up for our show here, as we're approaching nearly 2.5 hours after this Celtics Nets game. No Brown, no Tatum tonight, but the Boston Celtics defeat the Brooklyn Nets 104-96 behind the efforts of course, Kristaps Porzingis and Baylor Shireman, your two leading scorers on the Boston Celtics tonight. Kristaps Porzingis going for 25 points, 13 rebounds, 3 blocks, 3 assists, 1 steal on 9 of 13 shooting from the floor. Kristaps, folks, is back in action. He is out on the floor. He is ready to attack the playoffs. We just got to get to that point.
Yep.
Healthy, no illnesses.
That's all we need.
No illnesses, no viral illnesses. Just need to get to that point. But on the other hand, Baylor Shireman, hey, current Maine Celtic, formerly known as the Maine Red Claws, of course, coming from Portland. Baylor Shireman, 20 points tonight. Would you say this was Baylor Shireman's best game of his NBA career?
Oh yeah, 100%.
So when we came in here a week and a half ago, we said, best game of his career against the Philadelphia 76ers.
It just gets better and better. He's just going to continue to get better and better too. I'm waiting for that 30. And then look, we're going to have player spotlight. I'm picturing it. Baylor Shireman. I'm saying it. Give me that.
I'll say this though, folks. I'm sorry for everybody out there who wanted the Baylor Shireman player spotlight tonight.
I did.
I'll take responsibility. There's a little bit of a group discussion. We go player of the game ? And we go back and forth. We go, Porzingis shine. It's like, but Tatum did this, and it's like, Brown did this.
13 rebounds, 25 points. You can't beat it.
Right. Tonight it was between Porzingis and Shireman, but Porzingis coming back from the injury, 25 points, double with the 13 rebounds, 3 blocks on the night. The stocks, when you're racking up the stocks, that's when you get to another level, I will say, out there. And the 9 of 13 shooting, super efficient for Porzingis. First 7 points of the game was huge in this game throughout the night. Felt like the Celtics actually had their footing when he was in the game. When he was out, and not so much. And that's why you see the result on the bottom of the screen. But the Celtics, of course, pulling this game out 104-96 against the Brooklyn Nets. 50th win of the season. I think this is I think last year I for some reason want to say we reached 50 wins against the Nets last year. I don't know if that's actually true. Might have to fact check me on that one. We'll come back to you later on in time. But the Celtics reach 50 wins on the season. It's always great when you can reach 50 wins because some seasons and a lot of teams out there, they're not seeing that 50 win mark whatsoever. But the Boston Celtics are this year, and there's still more wins to come on the horizon. And we will have you guys covered for all of those post-game shows moving forward. But that is it for us tonight on this Celtics Talk Weekly post-game show. And of course, as I always say, folks, no, I didn't. That was the Orlando Magic song. I'm all over the place. Here we go, folks. The real music, the OG track for Celtics Talk Weekly. That does it for us tonight. Of course, I'm your host, Seamus Arlingo, alongside me tonight, Griffin Aldridge. As I always say, thank you all for watching, and go Celtics.